Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Secrets of Saturn YouTube channel and the Rockman channel as well, I believe. You have to excuse me. I have a very fluffy kitty who has decided he wants to be incredibly affectionate to me. So you're going to see him for a minute till he gets bored and wanders away. But anyway, welcome for a second night in a row. I've decided to start using my YouTube channel again because why not? Tonight's going to be way more like what kind of stuff I usually do than I did last night. That was just something to try, see how it would go. But anyway, I'm here with my friend Jeran tonight because there's a lot of, to be blunt, crazy shit being said about this whole thing that he's involved with that's called the final experiment. Now, I don't know that much about this, and I have no dog in this fight whatsoever. I have always maintained that I am not part of any group, that the only thing I represent is myself and Crow's 777 Radio, and I maintain that. And my stance on all of these things has always been that I have questions about things that I don't have answers to. So that is exactly the same place I have been now for years. All right, let's do it. Jeran, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Love the show. Missed having you on Raw all those nights, all those years.
Oh, God, yeah. We used to do that every week.
Every week.
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
It was a good show. Sorry to see it go, but no, this is good, and happy that I'm here and you're wanting to hear it out. So thank you.
Well, I also don't know all the details, and some of the people I've heard things from are on the other end of the spectrum where they don't like what you're doing, and
Of course.
Whatever. I have my own opinions on this whole thing, which I will interject as needed. Let's just pretend I'm 5 and I don't know anything about anything. Okay. What is it that you are doing and with who? Just go ahead and lay it out. And if I have a question, I'll just hop in and ask. Okay.
Sure. And I kind of can start back at when I became a flat earther, because I think that's, and just like you said, I maintain the same thing. I am not part of any groups. What I say on my channel is my opinion. I will, first one to admit that I'm not always right, but at least I'm always honest about what I'm talking about. It's my honest opinion. I'm not gatekeeping. I'm not trying to steer people in a certain direction. I'm just presenting my evidence the way I see it and why it's led me to my beliefs. And that's basically it. So when I got first into flat earth and I saw the AE map for the first time and I tried to debunk it because my wife is the one who brought up flat earth, I noticed there were some issues with the difference between a globe and a flat earth. One of those being that on a flat earth AE map, you can't go north-south circumnavigation, right? You would start going south and you kind of run out. What are you going to do? So I knew that. And then there was talk at the time of, okay, well, there's a 24-hour sun in the north, which many people have confirmed that. Daryl Marble filmed it. Bob Nodell has seen it twice. I've got viewers that are in Alaska that are above the polar circle, so they see it. Viewers in Norway see it. People in Sweden see it. I have a friend who grew up in Iceland who saw it. So the circling sun in the north is without question in my mind. Then there was talk, well, 6 months later, there's a circling south sun going the opposite direction. Of course, that would be required on the globe. So when we went looking for that evidence in 2014, 2015, 2016, there was none. And to me, that was just impossible. How could there be no film, no 24-hour sun footage? Just seemed to be far-fetched. So we were looking for it. We talked about it. We brought it up. We had a person that showed up on Nathan Oakley's channel saying that he worked there and he never saw a sun 24 hours. So it just started to seem like this evidence was mounting. And then if you go to the South Pole website, and you could just type into a search engine, South Pole webcams, and it's usually the second link that comes up. And if you go there, they list all the footage that they have from 2004 through 2024 now. And in not one of those videos is there a 24-hour sun. Now, the point of it is it's a 24-hour, it's a webcam from the South Pole. The only reason in my mind that you would have that is to show that there is a circling sun there. But they couldn't even do that, and they still to this day haven't done it. So there's lots of reasons that I started to pretty much know that there is no 24-hour sun in the South, which would essentially prove the flat Earth and disprove the globe. But the way I felt about Antarctica is it's extremely expensive to go there. I don't think you can go there independently. Looking at the Antarctic Treaty, you also can't even go with a team. Let's say 12 of us wanted to go and we got on a boat, because we didn't do an EPA assessment where you have to go and say, here's what we're going to be doing, and here's the damage it's going to cause the ecosystem, and here's how we're going to get rid of our human waste. If you don't do that stuff, then you don't get a pass to go to Antarctica. So we've been telling the story to people. You can't go to Antarctica. No independent travel is allowed, and it doesn't look like there's a 24-hour sun. So then in like 2017, out came a video by, I don't remember if it's Schwartz or there's a guy Schwartz and there's another guy. And the video showed supposedly a 24-hour sun. And he comes out and kind of says, oh, no, this is the other one. The one that shows a watch. It's like a watch in the view, and the camera's panning, and the sun goes up and down. It looks really fake. And then also the directions, north, south, east, west, show up behind the mountains, which tell you that it's kind of like a layering thing. Somebody used layering to, and it's just like, all right, this is, why would you use CGI inside this 24-hour sun footage? So I was able to dismiss that one. Then a couple years after that, another one came out. And maybe people remember seeing this one. It's an old man. He kind of walks up and says, hey, it's midnight in Antarctica and the sun is still out. And he kind of walks away from the camera and then starts this 24-hour pan around in a circle. But the problem with that video was, number one, he says it's 12 o'clock midnight, and then he walks away from the camera, and the scene switches, and the mountains in the background went from having snow on them to having no snow. So it's like, whoa, if it's 12 o'clock midnight and you're saying that, but then the camera starts and it's a different time of year, or why is there snow that wasn't there a second ago?
Okay, so it was a jump cut edit, like that was confirmed, like you saw that happen.
Correct. And then the camera comes around, and when it gets back to the beginning, the same clouds that were there at the beginning are there at the end. So we're like, okay, hold on. That doesn't seem like, why would that be the case? So it did seem like it was doctored, right? So I was able to dismiss all that footage and basically throw it away and say there is no 24-hour sun. It's what I've always preached. Now, people might ask, what's the main driver for there being no 24-hour sun? And the main driver is it doesn't work on the AE map. On the AE map, you have a sun that circles clockwise, goes through all the continents. This is something that you'll have people out there saying it's not proven, and we can't prove that the sun circles. It's just a joke. Anybody who can think for themselves can clearly see that the sun circles. You know the layout of the continents. They're not in different order. You can't have, it goes Africa, then it goes Australia, then South America. No, we can call somebody and say, hey, call me when the sun passes by you. Africa is going to call first. South America is going to call. New Zealand's going to call. Australia is going to call, and back around again. So what that tells us is that the sun does circle. And if it does circle, then how could it be that a sun would circle backwards for people on the outskirts of that map? So that's why it's very easy to say that there is no 24-hour sun. Now, fast forward to the beginning of this year, a preacher shows up on the scene named Will Duffy. Supposedly he's a preacher out of Colorado. And he started to, he was like hiding his identity at first and kind of slow releasing these videos on his channel, basically saying there's going to be some experiment, there's going to be some big thing coming up with Globers and Flat Earthers joining together. And then he reveals that it was him. Go ahead.
I don't know anything about this guy. I've just heard the name. So who is this person? What is his standpoint on all this? When you say he just shows up in the scene, what do you mean by that? Like, just give me the skinny on this guy, because I don't know anything about him.
Sure. So I guess his story is that he has a friend. Her name's Wendy B. Level. She's on Facebook. I'm friends with her. We talk sometimes. And that she was posting about flat Earth in 2000. I want to say 2001, something like that. And he saw it and thought it was a joke. And then he tried to confront her with it. And she like basically put him in his place because he didn't know the globe model very well. So he felt right away like, oh shit, could the Earth be flat? And, this girl has all these facts. So he said he went and looked into it and found out that no, the Earth is a globe, that we are just wrong about a lot of things that we talk about. And so he then tried to come up with a way to stop the debate, basically, is what his story is. And so he kind of came into the flat Earth world. The way I met him was that Dave Weiss called me and said, hey, there's a guy that I'm supposed to debate. I guess he's making anti-flat Earth videos. I was going to debate him, but I'm on vacation in Puerto Rico or wherever he goes, and Costa Rica, I forgot which one. But he said, can you and Austin do it instead? So I said, sure, I'll reach out to. So I reached out to this pastor, say, hey, I thought you were supposed to debate Dave Weiss, but it's going to be Austin and I because Dave's on vacation. Is that okay? He said, yeah. So he came on my channel. This is in January. As
You're saying pastor. What is he a pastor of?
A church, Denver Bible Church.
Is that a big church?
No, small
church. Okay,
yeah.
So just a Protestant.
Do you remember Bob Enyart?
Boy, that name sounds familiar. But go ahead and explain.
Yeah. Well, he's an old Christian, one of big name Christian radio host in Colorado. He was the pastor of Denver Bible Church. You may have heard him. He's the guy who did a phone call with Jack Horner talking about dinosaurs. And so he's got a whole bunch of history with, he's a young Earth creationist, that kind of thing. So anyway, that he was, I guess Will Duffy was working for him as a basically like an engineer for his radio station for a while, and then quit but continued going to the church. So when Bob Enyart died in 2001, I think he died in exactly the same predicament as Rob Skiba. Went to the hospital with like pneumonia symptoms. Everyone's telling him don't go. He went in there. Before you know it, he's in a coma. They're putting him on a respirator and he's gone. So he died 2001. So when he died, I guess this Bible church wanted Duffy to become the pastor. So Duffy decided to become the pastor. He has no like training in it. He's not like he can go to Bible college. He just took over at this small church being the pastor. And you can watch him online. I think if you look up, now I don't remember the fellowship names. Agape Fellowship, AGAPE Fellowship. There's some sermons that he's given that you can watch him on there. So anyway, that's his pastor story. He comes on, he does this debate with Austin and I. And basically we just kind of learned, okay, he's a glober. He's got globe arguments and he's kind of like the rest of them. And then
why does he want to talk about flat Earth versus globe Earth in the first place? Like, why does he even know about it? Because this isn't exactly a mainstream topic, at least not for the most part.
So he said there's people at his church that are flat earthers. And so he said it makes it difficult for him to preach because if he takes one stance, then the other side gets mad. If he takes another stand, so he would rather it be figured out. And he thinks that we can figure it out because it's how hard would it be to figure it out? So anyway, we do this debate. Everything goes fine. And then those videos start coming out about this channel that's called The Final Experiment. Nobody knows who's in charge of it. And then it's revealed that he's in charge of it and that he has this idea for this final experiment. And he says his idea came from flat earthers because he heard us saying that there's no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. So then he heard globe earthers saying that there is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. And then he talked to both sides and he found out that flat earthers, for the most part, feel like that is a requirement of our model. And globe earthers feel like that's a requirement of their model, meaning that some globe earthers have already said they'll delete their channels if we see a sun set there. And so that's basically where it was born. And then I guess what he did is he was going to originally pay for just one flat earther and one globe earther to go. And he did a poll to see who would be selected by the audience of who wanted to go or who did they want to see go. And Dave Weiss won the poll. And so Duffy asked Dave Weiss and Dave Weiss responded, no, I don't, associate with demons, something like that. So then I guess I came in second. So Duffy reached out to me. I was basically saying, hey, you came in second place. Would you go to Antarctica if I paid for it? And I said, it's not a bad idea. I would like to see it. But I said, but I would never go by myself. I said, I'm not going to go with a bunch of globers or two globers or any globers. And I said, it's very easy to heart attack somebody or be like, oh, Jeran had a heart attack down in Antarctica. And, so I said, no, I wouldn't go. And he said, well, what do you mean you'd go with somebody if somebody went with you? I said, well, yeah, if another flat earther was going, then I would consider it. But I don't know how you're going to find a flat earther to pay $35,000 to go. And he said, well, what if I fund another flat earther He said, would you go if Austin Whitsitt goes? I said, well, Austin's my business partner. So yeah, it'd probably be my first pick. So I said, he's like, well, he came in third. So I'll ask, if I ask him, well, if he goes, if I pay for him, you're saying you would go. So I said, yeah, if Austin says he'll go, I could see going. So
okay, so hang on.
Sure.
So this guy's a pastor of a small church, and I asked that question specifically because I'm trying to figure out where he's getting. If it's $35,000 a person, that's a lot of money when you start adding this up.
Yeah, especially because you fly down there, and that doesn't even count your flights to get to South America. That's just your flight from Punta Arenas to Antarctica. You get out, you piss in a can, sleep in a tent, shit in a box, and come back, and that's $35,000. So I mean,
this is through a like a company that does this, like it's an arranged.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I
think.
figured.
That's the only people they let down there, right? So like this company, ALE, which stands for Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions, has already done all the EPA, right? They've passed the whatever they have to submit, because it costs like $1 million or over that to get this assessment done, and then it get approved, and then you might not get approved. So if you and I wanted to do some sort of assessment, we put $1 million into it, and then they look at it and nah, sorry, you're not going. Then you don't get your money back or anything. So anyway, they've already passed that.
Okay, so you contract with them, and then they make sure everything is taken care of. So,
and they're like,
I'm assuming
they're going to be like in our hotel room the night before we take off on the flight. We have to empty all of our bags. They have to go through every single item to make sure you pack the right amount of items. You know, a certain amount of socks, certain amount of layers. So it's kind of a pain in the butt.
So anyway, really, this company doesn't have a dog in the fight either. Obviously, this is just what they do as a business, right?
Correct. And then the other thing you were asking about Duffy is that he was. So when I said that he wasn't working, he wasn't a pastor. He was a financial analyst or a financial retirement guy. I don't know what you call it. Analyst. No, what is it called? A financial advisor, right? So you'd advise people on their finances, on what stocks to buy and things like that.
So he made good money.
I think so. And then early on, people found that there's numerous, and I say numerous, like 4 or 5 complaints against him online. You can just search his name and you'll see that there's settlements that have happened in the past where people were claiming $200,000 in losses, and then it would be like he would settle for something less. And then there's like some pending ones open as well. So like Dave Weiss from the very beginning was saying, hey, this guy's got a bad name to him. He's already swindling people. And my kind of feeling was, well, I don't know. I'm assuming if you're a financial advisor, sometimes people lose, and they probably are going to blame you, right?
Yeah.
But then again, also if he's rich, maybe he was taking advantage of the good stuff, or we don't know. We don't know that stuff. So it's hard to make a speculation there. I'm assuming if there was anything illegal done, they would probably file some sort of charges. So, but I think that's where his money comes from. I have no doubt that he's probably got a couple $1 million in the bank to where if he were to, and I think he's trying to get a return on this, right? I think that he looks at it because he says he's open to being flat, if that's what the evidence shows. So I think he's kind of in the position where he's going to be kind of a hero regardless. That's how he feels, right?
But what does he get out of it if he's spending like tens of thousands of dollars? I'm assuming well over $100,000. What do you, in your opinion, what do you think, regardless of which way it goes, what do you think his benefit would be? Like what I'm having trouble seeing why this would benefit this guy.
Yeah. So I would say that I can't think of any. I mean, I'm assuming if you get people to go on a trip that they give you some percentage of it. That's just me. Like I'm saying, because it ends up now, I think there's 9 or 10 people going. It might be 11. So
he's footing the bill for?
No. So he's just paying for myself and Austin and Dave McKeegan and himself. So he's under the hook for 4. So it's $130,000 or so, right?
Now he hasn't said anything about filming or anything like making a documentary out of this or anything like that.
No, he says that they're not going to. But so just to kind of go through the story. So Austin and I, when we had to sign this contract, he basically gave us a date. Hey, if you're going to go, you have to sign this contract. And so the night before, Austin and I are just really talking about it and kind of laying it out there and thinking about it. And we really wanted to obviously stay away from what happened with Behind the Curve, right? But one thing that happened with that was, number one, I signed a contract that said they could use me however they wanted against my best wishes. I kept trying to not sign that, and they just kept bugging me and saying everybody else signed. And so they suckered me into that one. And then also when we went and did the experiment that night, nobody else was filming but the film crew. So when they went around after and decided to cut pieces out and make their own version of it, who's going to stop them? Because none of us have any footage. So we knew right away, okay, this will be different because we'll never sign anything that says they can use us however they want. And second, we'll have our own cameras and stuff down there. So there's not like they can film something, put it in a movie and say, this is what happened. We would have the evidence that it didn't if they're lying. So we kind of felt like we had a power position there. And then we got to write the contract ourselves. So we wrote the contract with the help of a lawyer. sent it to Duffy. He came back and said, no, I changed these parts. And we looked at it and we changed our parts. And we just kept going back and forth for almost a full day. And then finally we were happy with what the contract was. And Duffy approved it and said, okay, yeah, that'll work. I'll sign that one. So Austin and I just thought about it. Said, okay, did we cover all our bases? And we made sure we put in there we would not be vaccinated. So if that came up, we are not going if we have to be vaccinated. Things like that are in there. We also put in there that there can be no deception, that all things that are known to Duffy at any time need to be let known to us. So he can't hide anything from us. He can't be deceptive in any way. And then basically we also wrote in there that they cannot use our likeness, our face, or our voice without our approval, final approval. Now, we thought when we wrote that, we're like, this is going to be a tough sell. But what our sell was there is we said, look, we're going down there to observe something, and we don't care what you guys do, meaning that we're not going down there to film the sunset and then turn our cameras on you and like, ha, stupid Globers, you guys have been wrong this whole time, because we don't need to do that, right? We just care about the observation and the truth. And we said, so if we're willing to do that, why wouldn't you guys be willing to do the same? And if you're not willing to do the same, then that's telling us that you're going down there for the sole purpose of filming us in some sort of a hit piece. So
now, was that in the contract, and did an attorney go over it all to make sure that you weren't getting screwed? Like, is it as legitimate as you could possibly make it for your protection and his?
Yeah, I think so. If you want
like a record contract is almost how I'm looking at it.
You want it? I'll find it for you. I'll send it to you. So you can read through it. But I mean, yeah, we felt good about it. And the lawyer seemed to think that it was good. I don't think that we would change anything even today. I don't think I would change anything. So it's obviously pretty good. So anyway, that was basically where we stood, and then came down to that final day that we had basically till Friday at noon to sign the contract. And it was Friday at 11:50. And Austin and I were just kind of going through the last things, making sure everything's good and we're ready to go. And then I get a message on Facebook Messenger from Mctoon. And Mctoon says, hey, I just want to let you know that I've decided to go on the trip. And we're like, what? And Austin,
I don't actually know who that is. I have heard the name, but I don't know anything about him.
And he's just an anti-flat earther, basically yells and screams, and he hates Austin Whitsitt with a passion, hates Dave Weiss with a passion, calls them liars every day. And he's just kind of not a nice guy. So him and Austin have had disagreements for years. And so for him to all of a sudden decide to go on the trip, we right away, and it's kind of funny, leading up to that point, I was kind of the person that I felt like was kind of pushing Austin more than he was pushing me, right? Like if he would bring up something, I would try and like, well, what do this? And oh yeah, that's true. So I was like trying to kind of get Austin to see that we should go. Now, as soon as this happened, I told him right away, I said, dude, Mctoon says he's going on the trip. I said, so now let's just bail. Like, let's be done. He's like, no, I think they're trying. So it was weird because it flipped then. It went from now I wanted to bail and he wanted to go. So he was basically saying, no, they're trying to ice us. They don't want us to go. They want us to back out. That's why they're telling us this at the last second, because they don't want us to go. They think that Mctoon's going to ice us. So he said, let's call their bluff. Let's say we're going. So I was like, if you want, that's good. So we went and signed the contract, sent them to Duffy, and everything was on the up and up. And basically the contract also says that we can't back out for no reason, right? Because Duffy already had to pay the money. So if he's paying $35,000 for a trip, it's not like 2 days before the trip I can just say, I don't feel like going now, because I'm the one who signed up and he's already paid the money for it. So we understood that. So we were getting into a little bit of at least that potential. And then the other thing we made very clear is that Austin and I don't have money. We barely make enough money to get by. So we said, wait, if this is a trip to Antarctica, we're going to need clothes. We're going to need duffel bags. We're going to need equipment and gear and flights. And we said, who's going to cover all that? And he said, I'll cover it all. And we said, every out-of-pocket expense you'll cover. Yep.
Does that organization tell you what you're going to need so that it's you're taken care of, like protected in that way?
Yep. So everything that's on the list, they have a list that they're going to check your bags when you get to Punta Arenas. So we said, okay, we're going. And that's basically where it started. So right away, people started to, flip out, because there's been channels that have said that Will Duffy is involved in the murder of JonBenet Ramsey. There's just you name it. It's just all over the place.
What?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
One girl has a website out there that's called like Bob Enyart killed JonBenet Ramsey. And it looks like she got into some fight with him and then just assumed that he was the one who did it. Anyway, and she calls herself an FBI informant. Guys, if you call the FBI and tell them things, you're not an FBI informant. She's like on the phone, like calling the FBI, and then she calls herself like, I'm an FBI informant, Danielle Coco. So it's like, no, you're not an FBI informant just because you told the FBI stuff. They're not like using you. But anyway,
There's a question for you, by the way. I don't want to lose it.
yeah.
Can you ask Jeran what his thoughts of Eric Dubay and David Weiss totally flip-flopping on their take on the 24-hour sun?
Well, I mean, I think it's gross, but I mean, I don't know if Dave Weiss is necessarily flip-flop. Dave Weiss has tried to say that it doesn't mean anything about the shape of the earth. It means that we don't understand the sky. So that's Dave's position. Eric Dubay did a complete and total flip-flop. He actually nullified 3 of his 200 proofs, because in his book 200 Proofs, there's 3 discussions about the 24-hour sun in the south. When this experiment came out, he just flipped and said, oh no, we do think there's a 24-hour sun in the south, and it doesn't invalidate a flat earth, and it doesn't if it does set, it doesn't debunk the globe earth, which was just shocking to all of us, because we're like, what are you talking about? It does absolutely debunk the globe earth if it sets, and it's a pretty detrimental falsifier for the AE map if it does circle. So
well, I can tell you, the Crow just said, well, if you see a 24-hour sun, just means you haven't got the model right. And that was it. It was just like that simple of a, hey, you guys don't actually know. You just lean towards a model, because as I understand it, there's multiple models, aren't there?
Yeah, but I think, and maybe I could show you this in a little bit, but what I've kind of come to the conclusion, and I realize you can't convince people of anything, right? Ever. That it has to be convinced of themselves. They have to come to their conclusion themselves. So things that I talk about are conclusions that I've reached myself. And I know that by telling people it's not going to ever work. People are going to have to figure it out on their own. They're going to have to sit down and think about it, because what I've come to the conclusion of is that any flat map cannot explain that observation. And when I say any, it's because, well, number one, if they knew, supposedly they knew it in 1900, Lady Blount and Roe Botham and stuff were discussing it in some book, saying that there is now evidence that there's a 24-hour sun, or that there's longer daylight as you go south, which means there might be a 24-hour sun. And they said, but we still stand by the zetetic opinion that the earth is flat, regardless of that observation. So if they knew that, what I wanted people to realize is that this means that there's been 125 years of people knowing that, and no one's come up with a new map. The AE map is it. That's just the map that it has to be. At least in my mind, there's nothing else that works. There's a reason why it's the only map that there is. It's because no other map matches observations and the continent layout, and is able to describe the sun. Dave's app shows you exactly how it works perfectly with the sun going around the earth, around the continents in the order that we know it goes in, and it fills in most of the observations. So the one thing that it struggles with, of course, is that if the sun is circling somebody's head for, and they don't say it's just days, they say it's like months, right? So if we're going to 80 degrees south, but let's say you went to 90 degrees south, technically it should be 6 months that the sun never sets, just circles the horizon. 6 months at that middle point, it should dip below the horizon, and then you should have 6 months of darkness the next 6 months. That's what happens in the north. So if the earth were a globe, that would be what's called for in the south. So we kind of have always thought if that was true, there would be so much more evidence of it. For me, I've already said, like, if I went and saw a circling sun, I would come back on a crusade. I would be at the door of PBS. I'd be at the door of NSF. I'd be at the door of NOAA saying, get a freaking 24-hour camera down to the South Pole. It would cost them literally, say, $100,000. And that's 1/650th of NASA's budget a day. 1/650th of their budget a day. And they can't do that. I mean, they can't do that. And if it's so obvious of a proof of where we live, the fact that they've just let this go for 10 years and never actually done anything about it just tells me that there's a psyop here, or the earth is flat, which is what my opinion is.
So what's the mainstream model as far as the light goes? As you go north, you get to a point where there's 6 months of darkness, and as you go south, there's 6 months of daylight.
Right, and then it would flip in the opposite season.
And you'll have to forgive my ignorance, because I didn't look any of this up, and I should have, really. As you're getting further and further north, are the days and nights starting to adjust accordingly as the mainstream model suggests? Same thing with going south. Are they adjusting? Like, is it provable that what the mainstream says is what's observed?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get two different camps. There's a camp out there right now that's basically saying, we don't know what the sun is, so we can't say what it does. We don't know anything about the sun. It could be an apparent sun. There could be two suns. So once you're in that camp, yeah, then anything goes, right? That's not even scientific anymore. Now I think you've left into la la land, because you're just basically making up things and not even backing it by any evidence at all. So, but if you go by what most sane people say, yes, the North proves that the North is exactly like what the globe calls for. And the North on the AE map and the globe are almost identical. They're not much different, besides a couple miles here and there, things like that. So really, the north is not the problem. The problem has always been the south. But there's so much evidence, at least for me, that the south is an expanded area. If you look at the speeds of boats in this Vendy globe that's going on right now, they end up going way slower than the maximum speed, and they win the race, like the around the world race. It'd be like you going in a car race and then telling me you won at an average speed of 40. My first question is going to be like, well, why didn't somebody just go 50? Why didn't somebody go 60? We know cars can go faster than that. Why did you win a race going 40? But that's what they do with these boats. Also, there's no shipping. I'm sorry. There's no cruise ships that go South America to Australia. There's no cruise ships that go South America to New Zealand. There is that go up and hit 15 stops around the Easter Island, Phuket, Tonga, but they take like 3 weeks to get there. They're just extremely long trips. But as far as a straight shot right across, no, there's no such thing. So there's lots of things that have led us to believe, like that one website I told you about that has no 24-hour footage at all of the sun. So there's lots of things that made me think that, no, I don't think that the Earth works the way that they say. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why is there a frozen ice cap there? If the sun circles for 6 months, it means that the sun circles for 6 months, never even sets. So how is it that it's just a frozen tundra that's basically miles high of ice? So that's why I've kind of taken my opinion of it. So anyway, people have gotten real upset. They've now there's a bunch of people who have bailed on the AE map, and they just say that the AE map's wrong. There is a 24-hour sun, so they've already done the observation, I guess, for us. But the problem with that is, of course, I don't think they understand the implications of what they're saying. But I don't care because it's going to eventually hit them, right? So I just let them go ahead, throw the AE map away, and think that you can still be a flat earther who has a clue. The problem is you're going to realize quickly that the questions that will keep coming to you is, how does this work? How does this work? How does this work? And if you can't explain it, then you're going to be, you could do that if you want. I mean, I don't take anybody's belief away from them. If somebody wants to believe in a flat earth, but they have no explanation for anything that happens or the layout of the land, the sun, the moon, anything, then that's fine. But it's just recognize that that's where you're going. Whereas for me, this has always been about, from day one, my wife and I came into this saying, where's the evidence of the globe? Show us evidence of the globe. And they came back with stuff that's not evidence constantly. So things that were like, no, that's not evident. That's not exclusive. That works on an AE map. That works on a flat earth. So we just couldn't ever get anything that would be called globe evidence. We went and tried to find curvature, couldn't find it. Went and tried to measure curvature over water, couldn't find it. Basically, everything that we tried, we couldn't find evidence of the curvature of the earth. So that's why I'm a flat earther and have been for 9 years. But I have the entire time taught everything I teach off the AE map, right? I even have videos called Why I'm Still an AE Guy, So I have always been an adherent to that map because it works and because it seems to explain things well. So when I saw this final experiment and I realized, okay, the AE map wouldn't work, it's very easy for me to tell people, look, if I go down there and I see the sun circling, I can come back and say, you know what, the globe has better evidence of the shape of the earth than the flat earth, because the flat earth can't explain what I just saw, and the globe earth calls for it implicitly. And people lost their minds. They say the earth can't be a globe, you know that, we can't be spinning, can't be flying through space. I'm like, listen, I didn't say any of that, number one. I never said that seeing a sun circle would mean that NASA's real, or would mean that we fly through space, or that would mean that we spin, or that would mean anything, that the vacuum of space is a vacuum. None of that. Doesn't mean any of that. All it means is that the idea of the earth being a sphere explains the observations, and the idea of it being flat cannot explain the observation. That's all it does. Now, the question then became, couldn't they fake it? Couldn't they fake it? Not about you, Jason. To me, they cannot fake the sun. To people that are going down there for the sole reason of looking at the sun through solar filters, through telescopes, through infrared lenses, watching it for 5 days straight, you cannot fake the sun. There's just no way. How is it being powered? How is it being flown around in the sky? So I don't think you can fake it.
You're implying like an artificial sun,
yeah,
like a giant satellite kind of thing, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I think that why would anyone bother is my first question, because it would have to be prohibitively expensive, right?
Yeah, and then how would you even power it? I mean, like
power it, who would control it? Wouldn't it get noticed by? I don't know. There's just so many things I could think of.
But if they did do that, then we want to see it, because guess what? It could fall out of the sky. Like there's a lot of things that we could see happen that
Sure. Yeah, because if it's a man-made object, then it's fallible,
right?
As opposed to being part of nature.
Correct. So, and then the other things people were saying is, what if there's a second sun coming from, say, some outer lands? And we said, yeah, that's a possibility. But then we would see two suns. There's the sun in the north, the sun here. We would see them merge together or something. And that's what we're going down to.
That is what Crow's chasing right now. He wants to prove that there's a second sun.
Right. But now I do want to mention Crow's second sun is always near the sun. right? So in order for this to explain that, it would mean that the sun is over above Australia, and then 20,000 miles away, the sun is south of people in Antarctica. It just doesn't make sense. Because the sun that we always see, the second sun, is always near the original sun. So we just kept kind of deciding, and Austin and I kind of said we think we're best for this job, meaning that if they're trying to do something to expose people, if they're trying to make flat earthers look bad, we just felt like we are good people to not let that happen. Especially what happened to me already. I would never let that happen again. And so we wanted to go down there and see. We're not afraid of the truth. Let's put it that way. Now, Austin and I both don't think the trip was going to happen. Because if you know, in the past, there was supposed to be some flight that was going to go around the world, north-south circumnavigation, and a bunch of people bought tickets for it, and then the flight got canceled. It ended up being a scam. Everyone lost their money. There was like a whole bunch of, and this has happened numerous times. That guy Kelsey, who's a 747 pilot, did a video called, $1 million challenge. I'll fly the plane. I'll get the plane. We'll go around. We'll do this. So we reached out to him after he did that video, and he's like, "Oh, you'll have to call some travel agency." We're like, "No. In your video, you said you would fly. You would book the plane." He's like, "Oh no, I'm not a travel agent. You have to find." We're like, "Well, what plane do you work for? Well, who are you a pilot for?" He's like, "I can't tell you that." I'm like, what the hell's going on? You just told your whole audience. He has millions of views on this video, and he wouldn't even tell us where to begin looking for this plane that we could so-called charter. So this has happened throughout the last 9 years, where every time there's been something like this that they're going to prove or that they're going to do, it always falls through. It always doesn't work out. So we think the same thing is true. In fact, if you ask me right now to put my money on something, my money would be on the trip doesn't happen. That's what they would do if the Earth is flat. They would have to cancel this trip. They can't let us go down and see the sunset. So that's my opinion. And as each day goes by and we get closer and closer, I guess I kind of realize more and more that there's a chance that there's a circling sun. If they let me go down there, that's probably what I would expect.
Who would cancel the trip? You're talking about the organization that runs this, the business that runs it?
Yeah.
Because they know who it is that's coming.
Correct. At this point, they know that we're going down there to see the sun. Yeah. Because there's been communications with them, and they know it now. So yeah, if they had to cancel the trip, and the trip has been canceled before. So it's not like it would be a big shocker. The other thing it could possibly be the case is I've said that we know NASA can make clouds. We've seen them make clouds before. They could just junk up the sky in the south and have clouds there the whole time, so we never could really prove anything. I think that's one of the best bets, because if they did that, then we're going to come back with nothing. We're going to say, well, we didn't prove anything. And then Duffy's out $140,000. So who in the future is going to want to go down there and do that? Right. And I can tell you already, here's one thing that I have to take a step back on and say, okay, I was wrong about this. I've always said there should be tons of 24-hour footage of that down in the south. There should be tons. Well, now that it's me going and I'm putting together the equipment needed, I realize this is way harder than I thought, because you can't even find a rotating platform of 24 hours. It just doesn't exist. Who needs to do that? Who would make a camera that swings so slowly it's only moving once around in 24 hours? They wouldn't.
Well, I would assume the environment makes everything prohibitively difficult, right? I mean, you're talking about, you die if you make mistakes there.
Yeah, it's about 0 degrees, 0 to 20 or so is, I guess, the temperature during the summer. But and then also you have to put battery, those heating packs. People, you got to get a cooler, put in the cooler, put heating packs around it, but constantly be paying attention to it. You got to monitor all this stuff. And then on top of that, you've got, people saying, oh no, that's going to damage your sensor. If you can't look at the sun that long, you have to get a different camera. So I just started thinking, okay, anybody going down to Antarctica is probably going down there to ski, whatever. So they probably don't care about the 24-hour sun. And if they started to think about, I want to get a time lapse of it, and then they realize what goes into it, they'd be like, never mind. What am I doing? Why would I put that much effort into it? It's been difficult.
Right, and they weren't challenging the notion of it in the first place. So it's
now some interesting
I would
things.
think it wouldn't occur to anybody.
Yeah, and some interesting things about the trip that right away I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So as we're reading through the rules and regulations, one of the things it says is all campers must adhere to quiet hours, where you're not allowed to leave your tent. We're like, wait, what? So between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., you have to go in your tent. You're not allowed to leave. So we said, oh my goodness, that's exactly when the sun would be setting and rising. So if they were to hide it from people, those people go to bed, they go in their tents, they think it's, they don't think it's nighttime because it would be daylight outside, but they would think that the sun's out. And then they would wake up.
The point is to keep the simulation of, I don't mean simulating outside. I mean, for your circadian rhythm, like you're having a night and you're not having people being jerk offs at what your brain thinks is 3 a.m. kind of a thing, right?
And if some people are sleeping, you don't want other people playing basketball or, playing football. But so I said right from the beginning, I said, then I won't even go. I said, I'm not going if they say and then Duffy called them, talked to them, and got permission that we don't have to adhere to that because we're going there to film the sun and they know what we're doing, and we're not going there to have fun and throw footballs and kick snow around. That they've given us authorization to not adhere to those rules. So I was like, okay, well, if they're going to let us be out of our tents whenever, then that's fine by me. So that's basically it. What else was I talking about? So that's, so this McKeegan is, I don't know if you know who Dave McKeegan is. He's another flat earth debunker. The reason I'm actually happy that it's him going is because he's a camera expert. And so if there's anybody from the globe that I would think would be cool to go, it would be him, because he can, I don't like him, but he's at least he's got a camera expert, can kind of help us out if we have questions. So he's going. So that's, like I said, Duffy's paying for himself, me and Austin and McKeegan. And then, like I said, Mctoon said he's going. He self-funded. He's already funded that. There's a guy named Critical Think who lives in Australia. I think he's self-funded. He's going. He's a Glober. Then there was a girl. Her name's Elizabeth Acosta, and she won a contest that was held. It ended up, it's a long story here. Some guy contacted Duffy and said, hey, I want to give a free trip to a flat earther. And Duffy said, oh, that's a great idea. We can do like interviews. And he's like, yeah, like have him submit an entry and then we'll look over. So Duffy made a video saying we're going to give away a free trip, blah, blah, blah. Well, the night before they're supposed to give away this free trip, this guy messages me and says, hey, Jeran, I just want to let you know, I'm the guy who did that. And it's a joke. Like, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm not paying for anybody going to Antarctica. Duffy he bit for my hoax, and it's funny. And I'm like, that's really not that funny. I'm like, because now you got you have all these people that have given their paperwork and they're all ready to go and they're all excited. And now you're telling them that there's no such thing as this free trip. So I decided, that Duffy needed to know that rather than let him just go. And I wanted him to be able to make the decision of whether to even have that show, not to go and, he was basically going to do a show where he gives away the trip. So I, called him and just told him, hey, Duffy, is there any way I would know the name of the guy giving away that trip? He's like, no, the guy who doesn't want his name to be known. I said, so if I told you the name, what would that mean? He's like, I don't know. So, well, if I told you it's a hoax, would you believe me if I knew the name? He's like, don't tell me that. So I said, is his name blankety blank? He's like, dude, how do you know that? I'm like, I'm just telling you, I have a guy here saying he's claiming that he's the one. And I've got screenshots of the email, which how the hell would he have? So he's like, show me. So I sent it to him. He's like, pissed. He's just livid. He's like, man, I can't believe I fell for this. And so he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and give the trip away anyway. And I'm going to try and crowdfund it. He's like, because I don't feel right about just canceling it. So maybe if the crowd can pay it, then that girl can go, or that winner can go as well. So he gave away the trip the next night to a girl, Elizabeth Acosta. She was all excited. Then he had to come out the next day and say, okay, there's no actual money, but we're going to do a crowdfund. And within like a week, it was funded. I think some Glober paid like half of it completely themselves. So anyway, she's going. We like her. When we first heard this whole story, Austin and I were a little bit weary. Like, okay, now they're bringing in this third wheel. We don't even know who this is, but you can actually find her. She's on Clubhouse, and if you can go watch her. I mean, she's been a flat earther, like the head of this, whatever it's called, Clubhouse room, and she's been a flat earther, and she's got a good head on her shoulders. I've talked to her. We had a 2 or 3 hour conversation one night where she, I like her. She's got a good idea what's going on. And she's kind of in the same boat as all of us about the difference between what we should see and what we might see and what we will see. We'll see. So, so it's those, like I said, it's us 3 flat earthers. Then there's Mctoon, Critical Think, Duffy, and McKeegan. And then there's Candace Owens' producer is going. Because
really?
Yeah, well, I guess Candace Owens started talking about flat Earth this year a little bit, and then Will Duffy reached out to her and said, "Hey, just to let you know, we're doing this experiment. If you want to go down there," and she responded and said, "I think it's great. I love that you guys are doing an experiment because I feel like those days are gone. That people actually went and found out what they think and what they believe." And she said she wouldn't be able to go, but she was going to try and get her producer to go, and I guess that ended up happening. So he'll be going as well. And then I know Alex Stein might be going. He's kind of in between. He's afraid of landing the plane on the ice. I'm like, you don't land it. The pilot does. He's like,
I got to tell you my opinion on that he'd make a big freaking joke out of it, and that is not the kind of distraction you need.
No. So yeah, I mean, he probably won't go. He seems very afraid of it. So that's basically the story, and that's where we're at. But then the whole time, we've just been attacked by our own team.
Right. I wanted to get to that because this is where I was getting annoyed because you're my friend. You've been my friend for quite a long time. And all right, here's my basic thought on this. You're going after a concept, just generally speaking, if you're into flat earth stuff, you're going against anything you can access from the mainstream says. You're completely going the opposite of that. In my opinion, why would you not want to get as much data as possible to try and figure out if you truly believe that the mainstream model or description, whatever words you want to use, that's false? Why would you not want to do anything possible to gather more data to try and make a model that you think might actually be reality? That's all I've ever seen this is when I first heard about it. I don't know. I don't get it. Now, what are your intentions for while you're there? What kind of equipment are you taking? What are you going to try and do? What are you allowed to do? What restrictions have been placed on you? Like, what are you going to do to try and prove this? And any naysayers who are against you, what would you say to try and say that, well, just because I'm doing it, does that make the data?
Well, that's false? My thing is I say, you already don't believe, like they're acting like everything hinges on what we say. And I find that embarrassing because I don't base my beliefs on what anybody else says. Like it doesn't, if you were going, I would never be like, oh, I got to, whatever Jason says, I'm going to believe. It would never be. Now I might ask you to bring back the footage. Hey, Jason, can you bring back as much footage as possible? Let me look at it so I can make a determination. And
Which is what you should do as much as possible. Right.
Right. And if I look at it and I feel it's faked, I have every right to say, I think that footage is faked. I'm not going to believe it at all. Or I have every right to look at it and say, you know what, that looks pretty compelling. I'm going to believe it. Either way. So just have everyone hinging on what we say, or, oh, Jeran's going to throw flat earth under the bus, or he's already a glober, he's going to flip. All that kind of nonsense is like, oh, you don't have to listen to me. Just when we get back, be like, well, I don't trust Jeran, so I don't believe what he says. I mean, like, it's just so simple to me because I would never put my stock in anybody else. But they all clearly care a lot about what we say or what we believe. And then, you know, basically they just got upset at things that we were saying. They got real upset at me for saying that it falsified the AE map. And then they got mad at me for saying, well, because people would ask me, well, if the AE map doesn't work, then what is other options? And I said, well, I don't think there is another option. I've never, and I said, I challenge.
But other people do think there are other options, right? I mean, like I said, Crow just said, then the model's wrong.
Right. But
because he still leans towards other evidence that we're in some kind of realm as opposed to being on a planet.
Right. And so what we put out there is I've been challenging people like, then find it. Like, so like what they don't understand is that you should be able in this life to change your opinion about a belief based on evidence. But like I said, let's say I go down there, I see the sun circle and I'm like, okay, that's evidence of the globe, but the flat earth can't explain this. If I came back and said that, if somebody said, what are you, a glober or a flat earther? It's like, okay, relax, slow down. You know, what kind of glober are you talking about? Am I going to be a glober on YouTube making globe channel, globe promotion? No, never. So I said, so it depends what you mean by that. If you're saying that I'm going to say the evidence is stronger for the globe, that's fact. So people are like, I don't understand why people would be upset for me saying we're all supposed to be truthers and everything I've said would be the truth. And people hate me. It's like, okay, so are we really truthers or are we a religious sect that we have to believe the same thing and we have to believe that these things, and we can't even say that evidence could ever lean the other way? Because people,
that is exactly what this is starting to really sound like to me when I've heard of people just being really aggressive against you. It's like, what is this bullshit politics? I mean, is this a religion?
Right.
Is this a cult that you didn't do what the cult said, so you get the axe? I mean, come on now.
When we first got into this, remember there was the globers who were saying the earth is a globe no matter what you say. And we're like, no, but look at these observations. And they said, no, observations don't matter. We already know the earth's a globe. And we said, what a joke these people are. They won't even listen to us. Well, now the flat earthers are doing the exact same thing. They're saying the earth is flat. We already know it, Jeran. Why would you even go down there? Why would you even look at an observation? We know the earth's flat. So anything that you see doesn't matter. If the earth's flat, we know it's flat. That's end of story. So again, you're like, now you're
but that's a belief system. That's not you just saying that.
Right. And I don't think
what you stand for can't be challenged. And this was always the problem, even with all the mainstream stuff that happened in the last few years that gets my videos ripped off of YouTube. And so I'm not going to say it. But if you can't challenge something, it doesn't matter what it is. If it can't be challenged, then it's not factual. It's a belief. And that's it.
Yeah. And I think that it's a stand-up thing to do, at least to me. If you say something is one way and this will be the result, and somebody else says, no, it's this way and this will be the result, and then you both go as men, you see which one's the right answer, and then the other person who loses back down and says, you're right. That's how the world should work. But we don't do that anymore in this world. The world is that you make a claim and you stick to it no matter what. You say it's true no matter what. You just hold on to it because that's what people do. They're afraid to ever say, "Oh, I was wrong about that." That's why you have people saying things are true on both ends of the spectrum, right? Like, what? Well, which one is true? So I've got people on one side saying the globe is true no matter what you say, Jeran, and I've got people on the other side saying the flat Earth is true no matter what you say, Jeran. So it's like, okay, well, you both can't be right. Just chances of that are very slim. So yeah, to me, I thought it was a stand-up thing to do. I really thought when I thought about going, I said, all right, well, it doesn't seem like people really necessarily want to go down there. It's not a vacation. In fact, as time has gone on, I've realized how much more it sucks than I even thought originally, because it's like 2 days worth of flying to get down there and 2 days worth of flying to get back. You have to be there 2 or 3 days early in case the weather's weird. They fly you out early or fly you back late.
That's what I thought the whole time, that this is actually going to be quite the effort. And
it's going to be like 13 days, basically.
I mean, think about the environment you're going to. It's not exactly Disneyland.
No, and I'm from California. I do not like the cold.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to be. I do not. People ask me sometimes about shoveling snow. I've never shoveled one piece of snow in my life. So just part of the benefit of, I guess, living in California. Anyway, which we're running out of benefits to live here. Head towards Texas soon. So basically, yeah, and Austin's kind of in the same boat. Austin, I mean, I think he's been attacked less because he hasn't gone out and made some of the statements I have. But again, every time I thought about it, I'm like, no, what I'm saying is the truth. And if people are going to hate me, leave my channel, whatever, stop following me because of that, so be it. I'm just not like everybody else. I think what YouTube does a good job of is they force people into these basic echo chambers.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, because people have to cater to their audience. Like, for instance, right now my numbers are going down. Maybe I used to get 7,000-8,000 views a video. Now it's down to 4 or 5. So at that point, since I'm shadow banned, meaning I'll never be promoted to anybody new, I have a choice to make. Either I have to be happy with my numbers now, or I have to start gearing back towards what they want to hear. If I do that, then I'll get those people back. I'll go back up to 7,000-8,000 views. So that's what most creators would do, because no creator is going to be very happy with lower numbers. But me, I just am like, okay, well, if by telling the truth, eventually I have nobody watching me, then that's my sign that don't be on YouTube. I mean,
well, here's the thing. It doesn't work just with conspiracy type stuff. Like I looked up how to do something home repair wise. I forget what it was. This is like a year or so ago. There was something I had to look up. It was like a doorknob, like something very mundane, but I wasn't sure about something about it. And I typed in exactly what I wanted. And then it came back with the result that I watched. And then it started recommending the exact same how to fix this thing over and over and over and over again. And I was just laughing at it. And I went back and took it out of my my history so that it would go away. And that's, by the way, that's something that works on YouTube. If I happen to look at something that I don't want saved and start having the algorithm recommend me stuff, I go and erase it. That's just something you could do. Like, anybody can use that as a tip that I found out by accident by seeing just that. So it's going to do even more so when you're a content creator and you're kind of in your own, it's like very specific. It's a niche kind of thing.
Right. Let me tell you something real quick. I don't know if you know about this. It's one of the crazy evidences. Did you know that if you go and watch, let's say you go to Dave Weiss's channel right now and you pick out 4 or 5 flat earth videos, you watch them. My channel, watch them. You go to Dave Farina's channel, which is Professor Dave, watch a couple of his. Okay, then you go to your history in YouTube, and there's a search box. You can actually search your history. If you type in flat earth, the only thing that comes up in your history is debunk videos. How is that possible? It eliminates all flat earth videos that are not.
Oh, that's just because it's working against the conspiracy stuff. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, they've done a lot to mainstream YouTube. YouTube is not right, YouTube 2024 is not YouTube 2014 or whatever. We found that out the hard way when they ripped Crow's channel down for a few weeks and for whatever reason put it back up. But after that, everything started really getting bad. And now you're to the point that if they even remotely think you're talking about something that they don't like, bye-bye. That video's gone and have a strike. And
then we all kind of have to cuck to their new rules, right? I mean, everybody's got to watch out. You don't want to say the vax word. You don't want, it's like we kind of get pigeonholed too. So anyway, it's just one of those things where I've just had to accept that, okay, as long as I'm being honest, then I can't worry about anything else. And unfortunately, that position has led to just more and more hate and vitriol, and all these channels that I used to like, that I used to enjoy, have done irreparable damage in the way that they've talked about me. There's just no way. It's not like something they're just being mean one day. No, they're being just terrible. So they've kind of broken that bridge. Whatever. I don't, what am I going to do? But that's where I basically stand. So I'm going on the trip if the trip happens, because I don't want to be totally selfish, but really it's a selfish thing. It's just like I said, that you can't convince anything of anybody. They have to realize it themselves. If I've been wrong this whole time for 9 years, then I need to go down and see that. And if I find out that I have been wrong about what the map I've been teaching, then I have every responsibility and duty to come back to my audience and say, I was wrong about the map that I thought we lived on. It doesn't work with this observation. Now, could it be something else? Absolutely. And this is what I want people to know, is that even if I came back and said, yes, I believe that we live on a sphere now, that as long as somebody just says, well, Jeran, what about this map, this flat earth map? Oh, there you go. I'm flat again. Like, you can change your mind based on evidence. So if I go down and see pretty conclusive evidence of a sphere, meaning that it can't be really explained any other way, and there's no way that the flat earth can explain it, then I think it's embarrassing that anybody would expect me to not do what I'm talking about doing. Like the fact that somebody would say, well, yeah, Jeran, you went down and saw something that's impossible on a flat earth and is called for on the globe, but how dare you come back and say that the evidence now leads towards globe? That's really the attitude of people, is that they don't see what they're saying. So you're talking about, so now we don't adhere to evidence. Remember, we were the ones saying that they were pseudoscience. We were the ones saying that they were a religion and that flat earth is real science. And now we've just flipped spots. Now the flat earth is the one saying that, no, we don't go by evidence. We can make it up. We'll figure it out. So we think about dark matter. This is what we've been talking about for 9 years. We make fun of the globe model because they basically had to invent something that they've never seen to explain observations in the deep galaxies or in the deep.
Yeah, that's because they wanted to make their equations work, and they
Right.
couldn't. So they're just like, well, we need to name this variable for this large number that we can't account for, and it's changed. It used to be the cosmological constant. Now it's dark matter. It's just, whatever.
Dark expansion.
Whatever. Yeah, it's just I did something different. In 10 years, they'll probably call it something else.
Right. So it just seems like now but we made fun of them for that. So now if people are saying, well, if you do see a sun over there, it's just a secondary sun. It's a reflection sun. It's an inverted sun. It's like, okay, yeah, we can. That's why we're going to observe. I like what you said at the beginning, because I totally agree. Data is king. I can't believe that people aren't just like, yeah, go get the data. Because right now,
that's what I think everyone should be behind you. Yes, go and see what you see.
Right. When you're designing a model, coming up with ideas of how the Earth works, if you're fighting against this idea of, well, is there one or isn't there, then it makes it very difficult to make a model, because you don't know whether to incorporate a 24-hour sun or not. And that's a huge difference. It's going to make a huge difference in the map. Once we know that, once we come back and say, look, we know it's a 24-hour sun. We know it's not a reflection. We never saw any kind of reflection. We know it's not a secondary sun. Once you have that data, that just gives us a much easier job at constructing a map that fits all the observations. So that's my take on it. So will I come back and be like, oh, now the flat earth is gone forever? No. In fact, I will go on a rampage of pointing out all the things that science has lied about, like Stephen Hawking faking a helicopter behind 6 miles worth of water that we've proven without a shadow of a doubt is faked footage. It's camera video editing or video effects. And so why would science be lying about the shape of the, like, if you were told PBS and, hey, we need you to go prove the shape of the earth, why would they go out and make a fake scene and lie about it? That seems to me to be hugely sign of the earth being flat. Same thing with Nat Geo. Nat Geo went out and used an optical illusion and had some guy lie about it to basically say that the earth is curved. So every chance, and then when they did the movie Behind the Curve, they had to lie about my experiment. So in every case where they're able to prove the shape of the earth, they lie. And so the idea of the earth being a ball and me going down there and seeing the sun circle, it seems like such an impossibility, because how the hell does everything else happen then? If that's the case, then it's okay. Now you're saying we can prove it. Then why would we not have a camera there 24 hours a day for the entire 6 months of the summer? Why would we fake footage of a helicopter going behind water? Why would we lie about the shape of the earth? All these things. So I can't see that happening. I still think that there's a reason why they lie about that. There's a reason why there's no 24-hour sun footage. There's a reason why there's no undersea cables in the south. There's a reason why the boats go slower, and that's because the earth is flat. So now everybody bailed. There's not very many people left. Who's going to celebrate with me when I see the sunset? Unfortunately, nobody. Everybody's already said the AE map is wrong. So when if it does see it set, we're going to get back and everybody's going to forget all about that. They're going to all be celebrating and pretend like they're the ones who called it the whole time.
Now, what are you intending to do? Let's say the thing happens and you get there. What are you in Austin going to do? What evidence are you going to try and collect to the best of your ability?
I'm in the middle of working out getting I want to get a 5-day circling sun time lapse, because there's nothing like that. Good quality one. So was working with a guy who was doing time-lapse stuff. He started to second guess himself as far as whether his apparatus would work in the cold, which kind of scared me because I went to this guy who's like a famous time-lapse guy. I thought he'd be able to, and he kind of said, oh yeah, I'll help you. And then he kind of said, we should ask these people to do this. I'm like, oh, now you're scaring me. So it looks like I might get one of those. It's a telescope out azimuth mount, right?
Azimuth, yeah.
Yep. And so it's one that it's programmed. It's automatic, and it's called a sun tracker. You can get the star trackers too, but the sun tracker's cheaper, and it also just tracks the sun. And so you basically turn it towards the sun. You hit the power button. It kind of balances out. It has a detector, detects where the sun is, centers it perfectly to your camera, and then begins to follow it. So I have made sure that I've got all these power packs. Came up with a way to daisy chain them. So basically I can keep the things powered the whole time by just swapping out the last battery pack in the back. Cause you have to keep it, powered for 24 hours for 5 days. And then, so that's my whole goal, is to get that picture. And then I'm also bringing a GoPro that I, crowdfunded. And what I wanted to do with that is I just told people for $20, you put $20 into the camera, I'll buy the camera, I'll wear a chest cam the entire time I'm there, and I'll record, say, 5 or 6 hours a day. Now, come to find out, I guess people are saying the GoPro is not really meant to do that. It's better to do like 15-minute segments once an hour rather than to think I can record 6 hours straight. So that's probably what I'll do, is just record, say, 15 minutes every hour. And that will, my goal there is like, if I told you, hey, Jason, I'm going to the North Pole this weekend, for $20, I'll wear a GoPro camera and I'll give you all the footage when I get back. That's something to me, I would be like, yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. It's definitely worth it. So my whole goal is to I'll have my infrared P900. I have an infrared P900 that's converted. It's great for looking at the sun because it helps you see through. If there's clouds, you can see through them. It's a great little camera. That's all ready to go. And that will be just handheld and basically on a secondary tripod. And then I've got my Sony HSC somewhere. It's just a regular camera that would be more for like scenery pictures, things like that. I would be wearing the GoPro. I also have another GoPro Hero GoPro Session 5, which I can use for time lapse if I need that. And then also have an Osmo Pocket. So I've got plenty of gear that will keep me filming the entire time. Really, I'm going to be focused on trying to maintain that sun in the camera at all times. And, making sure that there's no secondary sun, making sure that there's no reflection sun, watching the sunspots as it goes by in the north. And then if it does go to the south, watching the sunspots in the south. If they're inverted and flipped, then it means that there is a dome of some type with a mirror that is captured the mirror image of the sun. If they're the same, then it means that we're still looking at the same sun and it's doing exactly what the globe calls for. But basically that is the issue, is that on a flat map, if people kind of put themselves way out at the edge in Antarctica, is imagine that the sun going to your south. So right away, we've got a problem. Let me explain it this way. Let's everybody pretend like you're in Colorado. Okay, if you're in Colorado and we're walking south, we would know that in Colorado, the sun would never be above our head. Okay, the sun would be always at an angle because it doesn't go further than the Tropic of Cancer. So therefore, if you're in Colorado, it's not above your head yet. But if you start walking south, eventually you'd be under there and the sun's above your head. You would keep walking south. You would hit the equator. You would hit the Tropic of Capricorn once you got down to the furthest south that we think the sun goes. At that point, the sun has to be behind you in some place. You're walking south. You've got down to the tropic, meaning you're down by South America or Australia. The sun would never go in front of you. The sun stays behind you. So imagine that you keep walking. Now you're out in the water heading towards Antarctica, and all of a sudden you see the sun coming around from your right, going to your left. Well, that's a problem, because if the sun is doing a circle, a clockwise circle in the flat Earth, then how did it all of a sudden change direction completely and say, now I'm going counterclockwise and I'm just going around your head? Because we would know, if you're in Antarctica, that at our midnight, the sun needs to be 20,000 miles that way above Antarctica. Above Australia. So if we see it in our south, then how is the sun in our south looking out to the outskirts of the flat Earth, where we should never see it? We know the sun doesn't even go anywhere near south of the tropic. And how is the sun being lit over there? We would call the people in Australia, do you have a sun today? Yes. Okay. Well, then how could it be there and there? Now, the globe model calls for that. The globe model says the reason that you're seeing the sun in the south of you is because it's a ball. And even though it's south of you, it's also above Australia on the other side of the ball. So they have an easy explanation. It's exactly what they call for. But for the flat Earth, there is no explanation unless you invoke second suns and say that there's a sun circle. But they don't understand when they're saying that. It's like, do you realize that no matter where you're at? By the way, I did get in contact with somebody on Instagram who's right now at McMurdo. And I asked him if he'll film every day from the time we'll be down there from McMurdo. I want him to film in the sun. I said, just go out around noon and show us where the sun is. And if you can do it at midnight too, I just think that's extra foot. Now we're talking about somebody else in the other side of Antarctica who basically everybody would see the same thing. That's what the globe calls for. So people get confused. They're like, oh, it's just going to be a sun going around you. It's like, no. Wherever you're at in Antarctica, they see the sun go around them. That's what the globe calls for. That's what supposedly happens. Well, the reason for that is because according to the globe, Antarctica is a continent at the bottom of the ball. And so if everybody's standing around Antarctica, well, the sun can still circle everybody there. So on a flat Earth, it doesn't even make any sense. On the flat Earth, the south is expanded. It's all the way the outskirts of the map. So how could everybody standing on the outskirts all see the sun go around them? Over here. It means there's 15, 35 suns. And why wouldn't the people in Australia and South America and South Africa, why wouldn't they see the many suns that there's all of a sudden? So to me, it seems like so simple. And yet, I mean, you have people coming out, people I have listened to for years, people that are famous in this movement that say it means nothing. That doesn't matter what the sun does. You can't, they say you can't look at the lights in the sky and determine the ground that you live on, which is ridiculous. When we said that in the past, I've said that in the past, but what I'm talking about is if you told me, well, Jeran, the sun is a sphere, therefore we're a sphere. Well, that doesn't logically follow. Just because the sun is a sphere doesn't mean the earth that you're standing on is a sphere. However, to say that you can't use the lights in the sky to determine the ground you walk on is patently false. Because if you know, the only thing that's a prerequisite is you know what the sun does. So do we know what the sun does? And the answer is yes. That's why SunCalc works. That's why you can go figure out what the sunrise time is for any place on Earth for 500 years in the future. We know that. So we know exactly what the sun does. So if you know what the sun does, then you can use it to determine where you live. Because if one model says, well, you're going to see the sun in the south go the opposite direction, it's because we're on a ball. And then you have a person in the flat saying, oh, you won't see that because it's impossible in the model. Then you can go and check which one works. And then now, is it 100%? I don't believe in 100% proof ever. So I will never say like this proves the globe. And if I say that, I don't mean proof as in there's no tomorrow, that it's an end all be all. I don't believe science does that. I believe it should be open for interpretation, and you should go based off what has the best evidence. So, and then people get really stuck with Jeran, but the ground's measured flat and water's measured flat. And I try to explain to them, I'm like, when I start steel manning the globe position, then I get called a glober. So I'm like, okay, but I'm just telling you guys that that's the globe's evidence. Like, you're not making an exclusive claim when you say the ground is measured flat. Guess what? On the globe, the ground is measured flat. And they say, like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Every sphere must have curve. I'm like, you're just not thinking large enough.
You have to think in concepts of scale and as well as elevation. There's things you have to account for.
Right.
And I think a lot of people who look into this stuff, they're dropping to make the joke, they're dropping the ball on that. Like you have to really grasp the concept of scale if you want to be able to look at it intellectually honestly, in my opinion.
Well, then I tried to bring it up. So I brought up a Home Depot, and now everybody's making fun of me. They make songs about it. They call it Jeran the Home Depot Earth. We live on the Home Depot Earth. It's like so stupid to me because I'm like, look, that's the globe claim. What I'm giving you is the globe steel man. And for you guys to make fun of it, you don't understand it. What I said to them is I said, if we built a Home Depot and then we built 17 of them in a row, okay, 17 consecutive Home Depots, which is only 3 miles. Or is it a mile? No, it's 1 mile. So 17 Home Depots it takes to make 1 mile. In that 17 Home Depots, if we cleared out all the walls, so it's just one continuous Home Depot, there's 8 inches of curve. So I said, so no matter where you put a level, anywhere on that Home Depot, it's level. But if it's on a globe Earth, guess what? Nothing changes. It's still level. So they're like, oh, we live on a Home Depot. Jeran thinks we live on a Home Depot. I'm like, well, you can say it all you want. It's just you don't understand the globe position, which is that the 24th. And then they'll be like, oh, Jeran says we live on a much bigger Earth. I said, I never said that. On a 24,901 mile ball, if you lived on there, which I don't even think is possible, but let's say you could, then everywhere on that ball would be flat if it was not with mountains and ravines and things. I'm saying that's why I said the Home Depot example. And then I started saying, well, people are like, but water lies flat. It's like, okay, so now picture in those 17 Home Depots, which is just 1 mile, that it floods. The Home Depots flood. So what happens then? Are you telling me that the water would curve? Because I just told you that everywhere in the Home Depot is level. And they don't get it. They want to flip out and call me names and lose their minds. And I just think it's a sign. Like, I think that the flat Earth community is way dumber than I thought. And that's sad. I hate to say that, but at the same time, I'm so shocked by the people who, I mean, there's people, I was arguing with somebody today, one of my VIPs, telling me that we can't prove that the sun circles. I'm like, I don't know, dude, I'm not talking to you then. Like, what do you mean we don't prove? Everyone knows that the sun circles. Why would you argue? But here's the thing: they argue it because they know it doesn't match what they need it to match. So they just feel it's okay to just change it and say that we can't prove that. Like, no, we can prove what the sun does. Go get people in every country to stand outside and tell you when the sun passes them, and it will be clearly in a circle. We know people in the north, they watch the sun circle around them. How do you watch the sun circle and then say it doesn't circle? Like, what? So there's just like these things that people say, like, what? It's really devolved into this. It's a religion. It's a religion. And when I got into this at the beginning, that's the last thing I wanted. I thought flat Earth was for open-mindedness and for more scientifically literate than the globe, which seemed to be just pseudoscience and stories. And I'm not saying that that's changed. Do I feel like we're moving through space? Absolutely not. Do I think that the Earth spins? Absolutely not. Do I think that we're flying 1.2 million miles per hour right now? No. And will this observation change that? No, because all it does is tell me that the globe has better evidence as far as the shape of the Earth. I don't think it's even possible to live on a globe, to be honest with you. So, but again, I'm willing to admit that if I'm wrong, and I'm also opening it to everybody else to say, if I'm wrong, then show me where I'm wrong. Meaning that if I'm saying this would show better evidence for the sphere and you're like laughing at me, then show me why that's wrong what I'm saying. You have to show me then that no, there is flat Earth that gives sufficient evidence or equal evidence, and they can't do that. So I just think it will take time. To expect people to come to this conclusion now is not going to happen. And I also don't want to worry about it because we don't even know what we've seen yet, right? I don't want to be one of these people that's already flailing around and saying the AE map's wrong and that there's no, why would you do that? We haven't made that observation yet. And they all act like, oh, there's going to be a hit piece. There's going to be a hit piece. It's going to be the end of flat Earth. It's like, look at, we've dealt with nothing but hit pieces for 9 years. Every single thing that has hit the mainstream is a hit piece, and the flat Earth hasn't gone anywhere. So stop worrying about it. Stop crying. You shouldn't be so afraid of that. And that's another thing. I get all these messages from people to basically say, I'm going to die on this trip. They're going to kill you. Somebody called my speaker's corner last week and said they're going to put us in a warehouse and they're going to mind control us and all these things. And I get why people say those things. But I also want people to realize that if everybody acted like you, then we should just sign up for being enslaved for the rest of our lives. Because what you're saying is we can never beat the elite. They're saying like, they'll never let you see the sun. They're going to do this. Okay. But if we don't force them, then what they can do is just sit back and laugh at us because none of us ever stand up to them. So I think this is, and Austin and I talked about this. We said, call their bluff, make them have to do something. If we all just say we're not going on the trip, we don't make them do anything. And they never have to prove anything. They never have to show anything. And if they are right, then we deserve to know that, right? If the sun circles, everybody on Earth deserves to know that.
Yeah. You're the only one doing something to add to the data as far as I can see. And this is something I've always said to people when they want to argue stuff with me. You should always want to be adding to the data to help you to understand what's really going on. It doesn't mean that you're going to have an exact idea of what's going on, but at least you can say, okay, well, now I know this, whatever it happens to be. In this case, you are the only person, you and Austin, who are going to find some kind of conclusive proof to the best of your ability. And you should be able to use, I mean, if you're going to film a whole bunch of crap, there's going to be metadata. There's stuff timestamped all over that shit, unless you're like some kind of expert hacker and you're going to go change everything with the GPS coordinates and everything. No, I mean, that footage is as legitimate as you're going to get.
Yeah, and we've already set up things that, like the idea will be like when we get to Punta Arenas, say on the 13th, the day before we leave, is we'll do a live stream from there showing the newspaper for that day, saying, here, we're in Punta Arenas, look around, here's the menu, here's a restaurant. And then we're getting on the plane, so we'll say, we'll see you tomorrow. And then we'll do a stream from there where we say, here's the newspaper from yesterday, and now we're in Antarctica. So nobody can say you were somewhere else or they, no, you can pretty much cover that. Because people have said they're going to take you to the North Pole, which doesn't make any sense because the North Pole will be dark for 6 months. So that won't be very good. We're not going to be able to see the sun from there. People have said they're going to take you to some island. It's like, okay, still, if you picture the flat Earth map, if somebody takes you to an island, there's still no reason for the sun to circle. It would require it to make a U-turn and start going the opposite direction. So It is actually simple. I've been surprised because I thought that everybody would just get behind it and realize it doesn't mean the end of flat Earth. For instance, if everybody got behind it and said, hey, we believe in the AE map and we believe that the sun sets, and then the globe says that. And if we went there and determined that that's not the case, then we come back and we say, you know what, we were wrong about the sun, that it does circle down there. And now let's go back to the drawing board. Why would it have to be the end of flat Earth? Why are people so sensitive and so like fragile with it? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere as long as people keep talking about it. Like it's growing. And so it's just one of those things that's kind of baffling is to everyone really looks really bad. And I don't know if they see it. I think the flat Earth has looked horrendous throughout this whole thing. There's people now claiming that they're demonstrable realists. They're not actually flat earthers. They only go by what they see. It's just all these different factions. There's an upward rising Earth group that thinks the Earth is rising upward. There's people who think that the 24-hour sun is going to happen and that it doesn't matter. That's what they say. It doesn't matter if it is going to happen, and it doesn't matter to the flat Earth. It's like, okay, you can say that, but there's no, now that we've run out, there's no explanation. So I'm not saying there never will be. I'm just saying right now there's not, and therefore anybody who is following the evidence has to follow the evidence, not stick to your beliefs regardless of the evidence. That to me is, I thought, was the goal here in being a flat earther and stuff. So that's basically the final experiment. And people have gotten very hung up on it, and they make every show about it, and they can't shut up about it. And they say incorrect things. All these things started coming out there. Oh, they're going to, Neil deGrasse Tyson is going, and Bill Shatner's going. It's like, no, they announced that they were going on a cruise the week after, and they don't even go far enough south to see the 24-hour sun. So it has nothing to do with it. But they're like, oh, what are the chances that these guys are going the same week, a week after you? It's like, that's the only time you really can go to the south is around December, say, I don't know, first through, I would say maybe the first through the January 10th or something would be the prime season. So it is what it is. I mean, I've kind of, and there's people that were followed me for 9 years that are in these other chats talking shit about me just because they believe in what those people say about me or whatever. I don't know. But it's just been kind of frustrating. Nobody's come to me and asked me, oh, can I ask you your opinion or something? It's just they're taking what everybody else is saying. I've heard things like, oh, you've already decided that if the sun circles, it means that the Earth's a globe. That's part of the conditions of you taking the trip. It's like, no, that's never been part of the condition. We wouldn't agree to that, first of all.
Didn't you make your contract public?
Yep. I read it the day after, or the day we, and then people made comments about that and saying like, oh, in the contract, it doesn't even say what is considered a 24-hour sun, what's not. It's like, yeah, because that'll be obvious. There's not. What do you mean? Wait, what are we going to write in there? Like, oh, it has to be up in this sky, this amount of time. It's like, no, we're just men. We know how to look at things. And then I have people saying, well, what if they are merging the sun with a secondary sun at the time of sunset and sunrise? I'm like, okay, it's going to be pretty obvious. It's at the same location every day that we're there. Oh, here comes these clouds, and now the sun goes away, and then here comes a new sun. It's like, we'll see that. You will see the footage. We'll be like, hey, that's really weird. What are the chances that the clouds came at these, just the rise and set positions? So we think that there's no way you can fake it, that there's no way you could pull that off. Not with so many people down there, not with everybody looking at the sun. So if you can't fake it, then we're really going down to determine whether or not it's there. And I think that we're all actually on the same page as the people who say it is there. And now they've changed it. Now they're not flat earthers. They're not AE mappers anymore. Well, yeah, that's what we're basically saying. If we go down and see that, then we would kind of make the same choice unless somebody can show how it would work. But I think that the biggest thing that I've heard, and you kind of said the same thing when you said there's other models. There is other models, but so far there's never been a model put forward that is anywhere near the AE map. Anywhere near.
Right, but that still doesn't prove anything. It just means, okay, so you now have another piece of evidence to build on a model for. That's the way I've always looked at it. When I first heard about this, I was like, oh, wow, somebody's actually doing something really big to contribute to something that you couldn't really prove to yourself before.
Right. And I think that that's how we should be as a people. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those frustrating things because I get it why people don't trust mainstream, and I don't either, right? I say, I hate everything about the mainstream, but I also think that when something is true, we just need to call it for what it is, and then build your beliefs around that, but not deny the truth around us. So, have I seen anything that makes me say that about the globe? No, not yet, certainly not. But am I willing to admit that a circling sun down there does require me to have some humility? And absolutely, because what it means, people want me to come back and be like, I still believe it. But that's like lying to people, because what it's saying is that I've been wrong about this for all these years, but I'm still right. I've been wrong about everything I've been teaching for 9 years, but I'm still right. Well,
it's intellectually dishonest. And I respect you for saying, hey, what I find is what I find, and that's what I'm going to report.
Right. And you don't have to listen to me. If you don't, like, I hope nobody asks for my opinion. Just ask me, Jeran, did the sun set or did it not? Yes, it set, or no, it didn't. And then you can make up your own mind, but it shouldn't matter what I say unless you're one of my audience members who's like, hey, I listened to Jeran and I like to hear what he believes and why. But I've always said it's easy for me to tell people my beliefs. If you ask me about anything, Jeran, do you think this happened? Or do you think this event happened? Or do you think that girl died at January 6th? When I give you an answer, I'm going to be able to tell you why I believe that. So I don't just have beliefs willy-nilly. I base it off of evidence that I find. And so I can always explain everything that I believe. So if I came back and now all of a sudden the sun is doing that, it would just be embarrassing to be like somebody who says, well, yeah, the globe called exactly for that, but I don't look at it anymore. I think the flat, and then, well, how does it work in the flat earth? I have no idea. That to me is not a good position to be in. And that's never been the position of a flat earther. I've always been kind of, that felt like I had the intellectual high ground, or at least the evidential background, because, you know, a lot of the model of the globe is numbers and math. And I know how scaling and variance works. And I know that we can change those numbers and it wouldn't change anything, that you can, if you're going to bring the sun half as close, bring everything else half as close and change all the gravity, the mass, everything like that, which you can do. But it doesn't mean necessarily that the flat earth is correct. It just means that the evidence that we found leads me to that, plus the fact that these guys lie about everything, plus the fact that you've got Neil deGrasse Tyson and these guys saying, like, we're not giving flat earth any time because it just gives them credence or lends them validity, which has just always been the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Because when somebody says something that's not wrong, that somebody says something that's wrong, you debunk it. You do give it time to debunk it, and then that's all the time it gets. So like science, Neil deGrasse, Bill Nye, one of these guys should have brought flat earth up, put on a Fox show, debunk it, and then it goes away. That's not giving flat earth validity, that's debunking it. But they can't do that. They haven't done that. They all hide and say, we don't want to talk about it. So that to me has been good reason for me to think that the earth is flat, on top of everything else. Water does measure flat. We do see too far over distance. Those things are facts. The beliefs that the whole story of the heliocentric system is a lie. I mean, as far as how it came about, I'm not even sure Copernicus or these guys lived, to be honest with you. That they seem like, according to Anatoly Fomenko, those things were written in the 18th century. But most of history was rewritten in the 18th century.
There's a lot of things that are in question with history, yes, especially the further you go back.
Right. And then you look at the things, they don't even make sense. I've tried to point this one out, Jason. So think about the story that we're told is that the Ptolemy and those guys believed in a geocentric Earth, right? Sphere Earth at the center, everything went around it, period. So if that were true, you have to believe that the moon goes around the sun daily, because that's what they would see, right? They would see, if they know they're not moving and they see a moon go around and set and a moon go around and set, they would say, okay, the moon's going around every day. Then when Copernicus came along, he would have said, no, we're actually going around the sun and the moon goes around us monthly, right? So that's a huge change, and there's no mention of it anywhere. You'll not find in one book them talk about the fact that they're going to change this. They had to reverse the direction of the moon and change its orbital period from 24 hours, 50 minutes into 27 and a half days. So it's those which tell me that these things are not real history. Aristophanes and his Sticks and Shadows, he has no books, no records. It's all people who wrote about him. Everything about the fact that they say that the reason we found the distance to the sun is because they assumed that Venus was the same size of Earth. And when they did that and saw a transit, they were able to do the math and get the sun distance. And then they did all these things around it and you had all the planets. And then years and years later, hundreds of years later, then they went out and checked and Venus was the same size. I mean, that's just not true, right? There's some people believe it's an ancient thing, that like the Babylonians and knew all the sky science. They knew all these things, and that it was passed down and then it was basically rewritten. So it didn't look like we got this from the past, but like our modern science came up with it in 1600. So there's a lot of different theories, but certainly it's not truth. The way they found some planet based on the math just doesn't make any sense. Again, if you had planet making weird motions, you would have to say, well, how do we know that the mass of Jupiter is right? So you would start you wouldn't then say, oh, there must be a planet out here in this spot, because that's like saying you knew that Jupiter was the exact mass that you said, and you knew Saturn was the exact mass, and then they're doing something this year, like there's a spot out there that should have another. Well, that would only be the case if you knew that Saturn and Jupiter were right, but you would never know that. So nobody's ever been there to measure it. So it's just, the story is a fabrication of the highest degree. Science does that. Most things do that. History does that, right? Everything that we look at is basically a winners told story. You're never going to get this country takes over this country. You don't get the words of the people that were taken over. You get the winner story. So it's one of those things where there's so many wrong things. And then the idea of us traveling through space, flying through space, a vacuum existing next to a pressurized system like this doesn't really make any sense, to me. It's just not something that can really be understood. They say, oh, it's a gradient, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner. It's like, okay, whatever you say. But as far like space must not be a vacuum. I mean, I think that probably that's what's going to come out eventually, is that that idea is only because the Earth to move through space, it needs to be through a vacuum. That's the only reason that the space is a vacuum, is because otherwise then the Earth can't move and it can't spin and it can't do anything, or else whatever we're spinning in would be detectable, number one, and number two, it would rip off the atmosphere. If we're traveling at any speed through anything, the atmosphere would be gone, the Earth would be retarded, the spin would slow. None of that happens. So they have to say we must be traveling through a frictionless medium that doesn't impede any of our movements. So again, these things are just stories. What do you have? Aristotle, I think, said nature abhors a vacuum, right? Vacuums are not. And I think another problem that people do is they say that, well, they love to put us in space. And I think that's a folly. I think that I'm weary of things that we were taught and then we just assume are true. Like, so we have this idea of the Earth existing in space. But if you were just born here, let's say me and you were born in a forest, we're growing up, we're 10 years old, 15 years old. I don't think that we would say, okay, we must be placed in somewhere. We might just say the Earth is all there is. This is it. We're here, we created, something happened, and the Earth is all that there is. So it's a illogical, or a, what do you call it, non-congruent, or a, David Avocado Wolf says it best. He says it's irrational. So he says the Earth is irrational, kind of it's meant to not be figured out, which may be the case, I don't know. But he says because the sky appears to be of spherical nature, but the Earth seems to be flat. So it's like a paradox. It's like meant to be that way, at least what he thinks. So it's just there's many options, but for me, I think data, like you said, data is king. You can't build a good model, or you can't build a good idea or replication of the Earth if you don't know what happens on the Earth, right?
And that's it. And that's why I think what you're doing is so important.
Yep.
You just nailed it. You need as much information as possible.
Otherwise, imagine if somebody's trying to draw a map and you're like, oh, you're going to do a flat Earth map? Yep. And you're like, oh, you're going to make the sun circle? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Right. So if you don't know if it circles in the south or not, you can't even draw a map because you don't know what the sun does yet. So by December 20th, everybody will know whether or not the sun circles. And then we can go back to the drawing board and we can see if there's a map that works with those observations. But to demonize us and claim that we're globers already or so, it's just so stupid. And the fact that people even believe it is even dumber.
Well, I hate to say it like this, but what it reminds me of is that people are reacting emotionally, kind of like, I always make fun of them. I always say like the super lefties, they don't care about facts, they only care about feelings. And that's how people are reacting. The ones who are coming after you are reacting emotionally. They're not reacting intellectually. I mean, it is what it is. What you see is what you see, and you're not going to be the only one witnessing it. And that's that.
Well, then as far as the chest cam, the reason I'm doing that is because I figured, okay, so if we just go down and take just a time lapse, anybody can say that's doctored, whatever. But while I'm taking the time lapse, I'm going to be constantly recording from my chest. So you're going to be able to see everything that's going on. And then the people who pay the $20 are going to get that footage right when I get back. But it's going to be like you went to Antarctica. It's going to be like 30 hours of footage that you paid $20 for, that you kind of get to go on the trip with me as far as taking off from Punta Arenas. Because think about it. These are things that I can't even imagine. When you leave Punta Arenas, you're going to be flying for about 45 minutes over water, and then should come just vast snow in every direction and mountains of ice. That's crazy to me. I've never seen something like that. As far as the eye can see, that's going to be Antarctica, supposedly. Also, at that point, and this is kind of something we'd have to think about, we might know before we even land what the results are going to be. Because if we leave at the time we're supposed to, which is around noon, the sun will be behind us in the south. We're going to leave Punta Arenas. If we start going down south and the sun follows us, then the sun is going around the Earth. It's going around that side. It's going that way. Or if we see it kind of going off into the distance, well, then it does what the flat Earth calls for. So we'll kind of know if the sun is, when we land in Punta Arenas, and when we land in Antarctica, if we look up and the sun is right there in our west in the sky, that's pretty good evidence it's not over above Australia. So, but we'll see. We're going to get there. We're going to film it. My hope is that I can get a good, clean 5-day circling time lapse.
How long are you actually going to be there in Antarctica for?
So 14th through the 18th. So like half day 14, then 15, 16, 17, and then half day 18. So like 4 full days.
So you're going to be there long enough to make an accurate determination.
Unless they're going to block it with clouds, or it's going to be overcast. But again, even Duffy said, even the pastor said, if that happens, that's evidence of flat Earth. Because there's just no way in the middle of the summer that we should have 4 days of clouded sky where you can't see the sun at all. But it could be something that they would do In fact, somebody sent me a
Well,
video.
no matter. Now, wait a second. I mean, either I live in Louisiana where it's quite often stormy and cloudy and all that. You still know the difference between whether it's daylight or nighttime. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. That's
When
not a hard thing to determine, no matter how cloud
well,
covered the sky is.
hold on. So we do think that there is 24 hours of daylight. So I think that's been proven for a long time. So we've never said that doesn't take place. Now there's an answer for it that people call the coffee cup caustic, which is simply if you take a light to the edge of a bowl or a coffee cup or a circular thing, that it reflects the light all the way around the outer edge. So if there were some sort of dome and the sun got too close to the outside edge of the earth, it would then light up all of Antarctica 24 hours a day. Even if the sun took off in the other direction, it would still leave Antarctica lit. That's what the coffee cup caustic calls for. So that's not in contention. I don't expect it to get dark. But I do, it's going to get darker when the sun's not above the horizon than when it is above it, but it's not going to get completely dark. And it's just snow out there. They make you wear these certain kind of glasses and you have to wear goggles on top of the glasses. I was like looking into why, like people have gotten blind from there, which is crazy to me. It's just because the sun is out there full time. It's glaring off the snow.
It's reflecting, right? Yeah.
People have been blind. So you have to wear glasses that have like sidebars or side pieces. And then you have to wear goggles on top of the glasses. So kind of crazy. But anyway, the trip seems like it's on the up and up. I mean, as far as ALS, I've had to talk to them a few times. They are providing a generator for us, which was nice because you can't fly with any of this stuff. Even like a little handheld one that's like a little, maybe the size of a lunch pail. You can't fly with those. They basically, the most they'll let you fly with is like a little tiny foam brick, which you can bring 2 of them on. So we kind of started to stress out a little bit. I did find out, I think I'm going to mail some stuff down to the hotel that I'm staying at down there. So I can get some stuff down there that otherwise I wouldn't be able to take on the plane. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like, and for me, as far as Will Duffy goes, he's been iffy. He's got a little weird smile. I went and had to watch his old videos and see that, okay, he did have that weird smile when he was a financial advisor, because there's videos of him on YouTube doing financial advising and financial planning. And he has the same kind of smirk, same kind of smile when somebody else is talking. So that seems normal. Or not normal.
Well, I've been thinking about this since we first started talking about it. I still don't see where he benefits. Not for the amount of money that's being laid down.
No, unless, I don't know. My only thought is that if I picture let's say I've got 9 million in the bank and I'm being a pastor, so we're just living off that money. And if I had some idea like this where I'm like, okay, well, I really want to prove this one way or the other, and I want my name to be behind it, then could I tell my wife, hey, I want to take a couple people down there. It's going to cost $130,000. And would she be okay with that? Well, if you have 9 million in the bank, I was telling Dave Weiss that, and he's like, yeah, but he's got $500,000. It's a potential fine coming at him. I'm like, okay, well, still with $9 million, I don't think I would really be that worried about 500,000. So I'm like, to me, I can just put myself in his position and say, he's bored. He doesn't, he has this channel that he's made. Basically the last year he spent on this entire trip, he does videos 3-4 times a week. They look like they're pretty professionally done. He says he does them by himself, but it's one other guy that helps him or something. But anyway, but one thing that I thought that we were going to catch him in that we really haven't. So people call him a liar. Let me just explain one thing that he did lie about. So a week before the reveal of who was the owner of that channel or who was the creator of it, he was on with Sean Griffin doing an interview. And he's the one who asked Sean Griffin, hey, Sean Griffin, have you heard about this final experiment? And Sean's like, no, I don't think so. He's like, oh, I think they emailed a bunch of people about this. And he's like, oh, I did see an email. I don't know what it's about. He's like, oh, well, I guess they're going to take some people down to Antarctica. And then Sean Griffin said, oh, do you know who is in charge of the channel? And Will Duffy says, no, I don't know. So then a week later, it comes out that it was him. Now, people flipped out, called him a liar. Even I did. But then I had to kind of take a step back and go, okay, is it a lie if you lie to somebody with the knowledge that they will find out? Like if your daughter came to you and said, hey, are you buying me this thing for Christmas? And you would say no, right? Because you're not deceiving her. You're not trying to, you are deceiving her. You're not trying to lie to her like for life. You know that in a week, she's going to find out that you got her the damn thing that she wanted, right? So he's kind of said the same thing. Like, yeah, I knew that he would find out who I was. So is it really a lie? Anyway, there was other things that were being said about him that he was lying about. And I tried to follow up on him, and it ended up that it was the flat earthers not being honest. And that was like, okay, guys, stop demonizing him. Like people said, he's not an actual pastor. Somebody went to his church and there was a sign on the door that said closed for renovation and nobody was there when it was supposed to be Bible study. I'm like, oh man, we got him. Right? Like if that was true, then I would bail. I would say, I'm not going on this trip. You're a liar. So I found out what channel they're talking about. I went to the channel. It was Sav's channel. I said, Sav, did you have a guy come on the other night and say that he was at Duffy's church at a time when Duffy was supposed to be there? He's like, oh, yeah. Like, can you give me that video? I want to watch it. So I get the video and I watch it, and the guy's there, but he's there at 8:30, and Bible studies from 7 to 8. He's there at 8:30, and he says, and it looks like it's being renovated. So there's nobody had a sign on the door. And when Duffy was confronted with that, Duffy said, that guy's lying. I guarantee he doesn't have any video or any photo of any sign on any door. And he wasn't there at the time I was supposed to be there because I was there. So he was very clear about it. And I was like, oh, we got him. We can just prove it. Well, no, I went and looked, and it turns out he was there from 7 to 8, not there at 8:30 when the guy was there walking around. And there was no sign on the door that said renovation. The guy just said, it looks like it's being renovated. Well, yeah, it's a shitty church. So it could look like it's being renovated. But anyway, then you kind of you're like, man, people are calling him a liar, but he's really not being a liar. He's just, saying what he's saying. But I haven't caught him in any big lies. Again, people are like, well, what about the financial crimes? I don't know what went on there. That's not, how can I look into that? That's a case that they're going to decide between him and his clients, I guess, right? They go to like arbitration. And so again, I mean, is he the best financial advisor? Well, I would say the fact that he's not one now tells us. I mean, he obviously either lost his license or got fired or something. So obviously he's not.
Seemed to have happened. Yeah.
From
what you're telling me, the guy seems like there's just some shadiness behind him, but what it is, it's just
it's a little shady. But then again, like Dave Weiss might have some comments. I'm like, Dave, are you telling me that I'm supposed to believe though that this guy has been told the earth is flat, but he's acting against it? And I'm like, and he's a preacher, but he's not a preacher. Like, I don't really get it. Like, I can't picture somebody pretending to be a Christian preacher, pastor, but they know there's God because they know the earth is flat, but they're lying about being a pastor, and they're going to fake people out about the 24-hour sun. It just doesn't really, nothing works out like that. It just, he seems like he's a pastor with kids, with a wife who lives in a home in Colorado, and that he's doesn't like that this girl Wendy kind of showed him up on Facebook about flat earth, and he didn't know about the globe model. And now he feels like he does know about the globe model, and he feels that the 24-hour sun does exist and that it should end the debate. That's why he called it the final experiment. Now, since then, he's kind of said, okay, well, you can call it whatever you want. That's just what I named it.
Right. That was his term, right? Not yours.
Right. Exactly. It's his term. And I don't,
well, because a lot of people are getting bent out of shape just over that. It's like, well, the guy's putting up $1 gazillion. He can call it whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah. And we could find out they were wrong. We could find out when we get back. But to me, it's like, it's not really worth going crazy over, because we kind of looked at it and we said, well, if he's paying for the flights, then we're not out anything. Let's say we find out tomorrow that he gets put in jail for financial crimes. Well, I'm not out anything. Okay, except for all my audience and except for all my friends, those guys. But besides that, I'm not out anything. So we kind of felt like we have always been in that power position, that we're not really afraid of them doing something to us. If something did happen to us, I would hope that people would recognize what that means. But again, I don't really have high hopes in that either, to be honest with you. I'm going to try and find this for you. The contract. So I'm trying to say, so I mean, we feel like there's, it would be very difficult for them to try and get us in some sort of hit piece, because in the contract it says they can't use our face or voice without our permission, without final edit permission. So what would behoove them is if the sun does circle, that they just film the sun circling and they go back and report what they saw.
Well, right. If that's really what's seen, then they're going to be like, okay, well, this backs up what mainstream science says, and here you go.
Right. And they have every right to do that. Like, people think I'm like, now, should it have taken them 9 years? No. But again, it took a pastor to come out of nowhere to do it. And if you go back and look at my first year on YouTube, I guarantee I said 2 or 3 times, this won't be figured out until a pastor comes forward with a bunch of money who will be able to fund the research that we need to do, because I knew science would never do it. And I knew no flat earther would ever have that money. So the only option that we had was basically the owner of Hobby Lobby or the owner of Chick-fil-A.
Hey, can you clarify again why this is called the final experiment? I thought we just did that, but just please explain why it's called the final experiment, please.
The guy who made it, he believes that it should be final based on the observation that's made. That either a circling sun means that it's a globe and a setting sun means it's flat. And he's gone as far as to say that if the sun sets, it's flat. Then he'll come back and promote the flat earth. He'll become a flat earther immediately. Mctoon says he'll delete his channel. FTFE says he'll delete his channel. They'll put one video up apologizing to everybody, and they'll never be seen again. But
So
again,
just to be very, very clear, the name Final Experiment was not come up with by Jeran Campanella or Austin. No, that's not your name. That is not you're going for the ride to get what you can get out of it.
I'm going because there's no other way I would ever. Let's say I won $1 million, $2 million. There's no way I would spend $30,000 on or $35,000 going to Antarctica. Seems like an absolute miserable time. 2 weeks out of your life, right around the holidays. There's nothing about it that's becoming. So the only way I would ever go is if it was completely funded by somebody else. And I also recognize that this is the last time that's ever going to happen. It's not going to be another guy the next year that's like, oh, who wants to go this time? So
not likely anyway.
Yeah. And I just said, to me, I stood by myself when I said, no, I don't want to go alone. I felt that would have been a bad move. I just didn't want, easily they could heart attack you and be like, oh, Jeran had a heart attack and nobody's even going to investigate. But if we go down there and we come back and they're like, Jeran and Austin and Lisbeth all had heart attacks, that's probably enough reason for people to go look into it.
No, suspicious. Plus, it's just an emotional thing too. Like if you're all by yourself and you're surrounded by a bunch of people who don't like you very much, right. I mean that's.
Yeah, I can already picture.
On top of dealing with what the actual situation is, going to this very harsh environment. So yeah, I mean, it was very cool that he was down to let a person that that's your bro,
And then what was funny is that so then it was going to be Austin and I, but then Austin's like, well, and Duffy's going too, right? And I'm like, no, I think that he gave up his seat to pay for you. And he's like, well, then I'm not going. I'm like, oh, well, then you got to tell him that. So then Austin made a demand that said, I'm only going if you're going, Duffy, because he said, you're not going to make this trip and then not go. So then Duffy's like, well, I told my wife I was only going to pay for 2 trips at the most. That means I'm paying for 4. So he's like, I guess I'll talk to her about it. So he ended up getting her okay, we're blessing on that. But his original plan was paying for 2 trips, 1 flat earther, 1 globe earther. Then he was thinking about going himself. Then when I added Austin, he took himself out. Now he's back in. So he has to pay for 4.
So who is actually going now on this trip that's part of your camp?
Just Austin, myself, and Lisbeth.
And then, well, I meant like all together, because I'm assuming through this company, they do them in groups, right? There's going to be other people outside of this Duffy's thing.
There can be 70 people, which is it's 200. It's like 250 people can fit on the plane, but only 70 can stay at the camp at one time. So the most there'll be is 70. But I've seen videos of people going down there. It's usually 10 people. It's usually not very many. That's probably why it's so expensive. But I'm guessing there's going to be at least 10 or 12 from us, and there'll probably be another 10 or 20 people from.
So there'll also be you can almost call it a control group, because there'll be people there who are going because they wanted to go and have nothing to do with anything you guys are doing.
There should be, absolutely, yes. Unless nobody signed up for the trip, which would be weird. If I get on the plane and it's just us, that'd be weird.
Well, if you see guys in black suits and sunglasses, you can be like, I'm
not gonna leave here. If I see people look too German, ready to. Wait, what is that?
Anybody here from Operation Paperclip? Oh shit!
We're out of here. You look a little bit like Mengel's son. Yeah, so I'm not worried about them doing anything to us. I think that sometimes those things are, the more public you are, the safer you are, right?
Yes.
Because they would do them more damage to have something happen to us than to just have nobody even know about it. So
I think that's kind of taking the conspiracy aspect of this too far. I mean, not to be rude to you, but are you guys that important? I mean, it's like, is somebody really constructing a conspiracy around another conspiracy around you guys? That's not saying it's not possible. I'm an open-minded guy, but it's like, it seems a little unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you have to take the position sometimes of like, okay, let's say that we're right. So if you take that position of just, okay, we're right that the earth is flat, they've been hiding it for 500 years, whatever. Then you have to start saying, well, they're not going to give it up easy. So it's not going to be like, I'll just let Austin and Jeran go down there and film the sunset. They would have to somehow stop that. But again, how would they go about doing that? Would it be good if they just kill us? Well, somebody's going to go the next year. So that's not going to do it. You're going to have to do something else. So they would have to actually convince us.
Well, if there were murders, dude, you're public enough that.
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess we couldn't call it murders. If you guys disappear, you're public enough that a whole lot of people, myself included, would start asking a hell of a lot of questions. So I just don't find that to be very likely.
Neither do I. But that would be my hope, is if we do disappear in a crevasse or something, that people start to question why that might be. There might be a reason behind that. So anyway, and again, people can spiral about my opinion. I don't really understand it. I would never spiral about somebody else's opinion. Like, I can't imagine sitting here watching a show and somebody's saying what they think it's going to prove to them based on what they've taught or based on what they've believed for 9 years, I can't picture sitting there calling them names, running off to make a video about them or whatever. It's just really pathetic to me because I don't base my beliefs off what other people believe. I can listen to what you believe. I'll listen to what Jason believes. I'll listen to what Crow believes. I'll listen to what Owen Benjamin believes. And then from that, if anything matches my worldview and kind of fits with my opinion of the world, then I can adopt those things into my belief system. And if they don't, I can just deny them or I can just ignore them. And when somebody is consistently giving me good information, that's the people that I watch and that's the people I gravitate to. And the people that continue to put out bad information, why would I watch them again? So there's some channels that I used to watch that I'll never watch again ever because they just keep putting out misinformation, lies, confusion. They don't come to me for answers. They'll just keep going on the show, making a new video about saying something about me that's like, that's not true. That's not true. It's like, oh, I'm right here. All you have to do is ask me, Jeran, is it true to this? Or they won't even do that. So it just becomes, and then I just hear people preaching on their channel like, hey, we should be allowed to believe what we want. We should be allowed to make decisions based on what we see as being true. It's like, that's what we're doing. So you're demonizing us for doing exactly what you're saying you should be able to do. And it's weird because then if I say that about they shouldn't be going after it, they'll be like, oh, Jeran's trying to tell us what we can do on our channel. Like, no, you can do whatever you want on your channel. That's not what I'm saying. You can do whatever you want on your channel, but so can we, So it's just a very weird thing. I wish there was more flat earthers that stood up for the AE map and understanding that it's okay if you're wrong, and that sometimes you have to have balls and just say, this is what I believe for 9 years. And if I'm wrong, then I'll get shown I'm wrong. But everyone's taking a back seat. In fact, I might be the only one. I don't think there's anybody else. Even Austin kind of said, well, he wouldn't think that the globe is true. He would have to rethink his position though. Kind of, touched it with kid gloves like that. Which again, I at least give him credit because he wasn't like everybody else who said it doesn't matter. Because clearly it does. Clearly it does matter. And
it clearly matters, Jeran, just because so many people are getting so bent out of shape over it.
Yeah. Well, according to them, they would say that they're getting bent out of shape because they think it doesn't matter, and I'm saying it does. That's what they would say.
I mean, what difference does it make what Jeran Campanella says?
Yeah, amen to that.
Please try again.
And I don't mean that from like a screw you kind of thing, but it's like, okay, so this is what you think.
When's the last time that you watched somebody and listened to their belief because it was going to be important to you enough that you had to believe? I just don't get it. I've never been like that, and I don't. And I believe that that's the problem with like religions. That's why I don't like religions or cults,
right.
Is because you're being told what to believe based on what somebody else says, and you're not getting a chance to actually believe what the evidence tells you. And that's how I grew up being a Catholic, is that I didn't look at evidence around the world because I was told that anything coming from outside the Bible was from Satan. So anything coming from outside, I was just, I'm wary of that. But then I realized, well, none of these beliefs are mine. They're all beliefs that have been handed to me and that I believe because my parents told me to. And once I was able to get out of that, then I kind of could see clearly. And so when we found flat earth, because then I became an atheist. And when I became an atheist, I found out that that's a religion. And I said, okay, these guys also, they bank things off like these, dates of rocks and that they can date dinosaur bones. And then you start looking into it and find out that they don't even date dinosaur bones. They basically look at the strata of the earth that they come from. And then they say they know what that date is. Like, how'd you figure out the date of the rocks? So you just find that this whole thing is like a unraveling ball of yarn. And so I got out of that one. And when I found flat earth, I really felt like I found a group of people that were open-minded, that would allow you to think thoughts that are outside the box and then have everything bring back to what is seen in the real world. And that's what flat earth became. And I think those first 2 years, say 2015, 2016, were great because that's what it was. It was people doing the research, always coming back, but no matter what fringe theory they went off on, it still had to be rooted in evidence, right? So that would be the way that's the barometer. If somebody's going off on some theory and you're like, well, where's your evidence of that? And they would say, well, I don't. Okay, well, then we dismiss that. We're only looking for, that's how it was. And then I don't want to blame Christians, but it was about when Christians started to latch onto this, because Christians latch onto it not because of evidence, but because the Bible says so. The Bible says that the earth doesn't move. The Bible says that the earth is pressed, flat like a seal or whatever it's called. So that's when things started to not be so research based. We had FE Core, but beyond that, there just wasn't a lot of good experiments being done anymore. It was more like, let's yell about it and talk about it in memes and have debates. So it did kind of, go away from, and I'm part of it. I'm part of that idea where all of a sudden it was like, oh, we got to do these live streams. And then COVID happened, right? COVID obviously kept everybody home. So, lots of reasons that we are where we are. But I don't think that there's a reason why anybody should be upset about somebody going to get data. And if you think we're going to fake it, then wait till the data comes back. And if we come back and say, oh, sorry, we lost the data. Okay, right away, you'll be like, I knew it. These guys are fake.
Suspicious.
Yeah. So hey, be suspicious. I mean, you should be skeptical about everything, but not about, I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know. Being skeptical of Austin and I is a little bit of a stretch. I get it. I'm myself. I'm business partners with Austin. So I see Austin as very honest in that he would never go there and come back and lie. I think the same thing about Lisbeth. And that's one thing that we put in the contract is that we are going down there to give our honest recollection or, basically what we see. And that's it. So the people have been saying, because I've heard people out there saying, oh, they promise that if the sun circles, it means it's a globe. No one's ever said that. And we've never signed any contract that says that's part of it at all. So really it's just, it's what it's billed as. And people have their own ideas about what's going on. And they are getting real frustrated about it. And they've said, oh, well, you guys have known this for years. And now you're just taking advantage of it. It's like, known what for years? They might be talking about in 2018 or so, or whatever it was, 17 or 18, Jake the asshole came to me because he was doing a debunk of Cool Hard Logic's video. And he said, hey, Cool Hard Logic says that the sun sets south of west and rises south of east when you're in Australia. How do we explain that? And I said, oh, just don't do that one yet. He's like, what do you mean? I'm doing a debunk video. I'm like, yeah, we don't have the answer. He's like, what do you mean? I said, well, we don't have the exact answer of why that would happen. And I said, so we're working on it. Because basically Jake was like an attack dog. He would go after people and they would do hit pieces and he would do great videos going back at them. And us, me, Bob Nodell, Austin Whitsitt, all of us were like researchers, or like we were doing, trying to figure these things out. So it wasn't ever going to be on Jake to go figure it out. It's like, Jake, just do your debunking videos, like whatever you do. And I said, skip that part because we haven't got an answer yet. Well, he went off the deep end saying that we knew that the AE map didn't work and that the sun didn't circle. To me, if we knew that and that the sun went behind Antarctica, yeah, I would have completely known at that time. But the problem was there was no evidence of the Antarctic sun. So it was like, yeah, it looks like it sets south of west, rises south of east, but there's no 24-hour sun. So it just looks that way. It must keep going around the earth. So I was able to explain that away. Whereas then Jake went off on his tangent of basically leaving the flat earth because of, so now they're saying, oh, now that it's coming out, now Jeran's making it seem like it's new to him. He's never heard of it. No, I never said that. In fact, you can find videos called Why I'm Still an AE Person. And it's me explaining, even with these observations, I still believe in the AE map. So I clearly knew it. I clearly told my audience that I knew that the sun set south of west and rise south of east. So again, it's just one of those things where if it turns out that the sun does circle down there, then the globe is probably at least the most evidence to clear the closest to the truth, at least as far as we know right now. Again, does it mean forever? No. Please go to the drawing board. Please figure it out. I hate the globe for many reasons. I think that the way it's taught is wrong. I think that the way that it's promoted is wrong. I think the way that it's proven is wrong. I think that you never can teach children at 4 or 5 years old where they live and then never follow up to tell them all the evidence that tells them where they live, because they're going to get to a certain age when they look for the evidence. If there is none, they're going to do what flat earthers have done. So, and that's another thing. I would go on a crusade against anybody demonizing flat earthers, because I would say, hey, well, now that I think that the earth might be a sphere because the evidence matches better, let me explain all the reasons that flat earthers should exist, which is Stephen Hawking faking these experiments, the no 24-hour sun footage, the no undersea cables in the south, the boat races are slower in the south. I would give all these reasons that it's actually the intellectually honest opinion to doubt the globe. It is absolutely okay with, and people demonizing it. This is the problem, is all these globers are just act like flat earthers are so stupid when they're really not. They're actually finding the things that globers didn't even find. No glober ever found out that Stephen Hawking faked his helicopter experiment. It took flat earthers. It took people being skeptical of science to show that science does lie. So the religious adherence to science would have never caught those at all. And there's been many things.
I always follow the philosophy of the late, great Jim Mars, who said, question everything.
Yep. And again, even question us when we come back. There's no reason that you should buy into what we say, because I wouldn't ever do that to you. If you were going and you came back, I wouldn't buy into what you say, but I would ask you to get as much footage as you can. So that's
what you're doing.
Right. Jeran, are you going to get all the, going to get as much footage as I can? I have every camera we have. I've got memory cards up the wazoo. We've got battery packs up the wazoo. So we got a generator down there. it is what it is. We're going to go down there. We're going to get as much data as we can. We'll bring it back. And, I did think for a little while, like, oh, it's going to be great to have all the flat earthers rallying behind us and everything. And then I realized, okay, that ship has sailed. So, but it's still the same regardless, is that I'm not excited about the trip. I'm actually kind of dreading it a little bit, but it will be one of those experiences, if we do go, that I'll never forget. And it will be either, it feels good to know that as of December 19th, I'm going to know one way or the other. And that's very selfish, but at the same time, and then my wife puts it a great way. She said, for 9 years, we've been asking for evidence of the globe. They've been unable to provide it. This is evidence of the globe. That's it. So when you go into asking for evidence of the globe and they don't provide any, then it makes sense why you wouldn't believe in it. But if they all of a sudden do provide it, and this isn't something like, oh, look at this one little observation. This is the freaking sun, and it's circling your head for 5 days. Again, that's just picture where you're at now. Everybody knows the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. You can kind of picture that half arc that you see in the sky. Now picture you go down south and eventually you get to far enough that the sun is just doing a circle around your head every single day. And not for days or weeks, or it's for months, supposedly. Even at that 80-degree marker, it'd be about 3 months that you have 24-hour sun. If that's the case, we should recognize that that means something. That it means something pretty profound. Because it, again, and the people, for me at least, I say there's no way God deceived us on purpose. God would not set up a world that's flat and then say, now I'm going to make the sun do something it can only do on a sphere. That's completely illogical. I don't think the creator would do that. I do think the creator put our one and only sun here as a guiding light. And it's the allegories that go with the sun, the God's sun. It's, it's the light of the world. So I do think that there is evidence and proof within the sun that tell us where we live. So all the people saying we can't tell the shape of the ground by the lights in the sky, you can say it all you want. It's God's sun. He put it here for a reason. And it's probably the best way to determine. If the earth is as large as they say, you're not going to be able to measure the curve with a ruler. You're not going to be able to measure it with laser lights because it's too far away. The curve's too far. So that would tell me that the sun would be your arbiter of truth. And since it's so big, it can't be faked. I think that I give props to Duffy for finding the one thing that's pretty definitive. I mean, could you find a way out of it? Sure. I'm not saying I know all possible ways, but because everything else, like, the equator is a big deal. On the globe Earth, the equator is a straight line. On the flat Earth, it's a very curved line. It's the equator that's curved around the circle. But there's no way to ever determine that because even ask any pilot. No pilot you wouldn't even know you're deviating that much. You wouldn't know that you were deviating that much in a 50-mile circle, let alone 24,901. So there's lots of different differences, but it's very difficult to prove. But one of them that should be pretty easy is whether the sun circles or whether it sets. So that is that. I mean, do you agree with the position there? I mean, if you went down there and saw that, would make it pretty definitive to you, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, but I've never had a stake in this. I've never believed anything in particular about any of this. I've just seen some things that I have questions about that I'd like answers to. And you doing this is just, okay, well, here's more scientific data to add into the sum total. That's the way I've always looked at this stuff.
And I want people to realize too that all the NASA stuff, it doesn't get rid of any of the NASA fakery.
We know that they faked stuff. You just don't know exactly why. And we could sit here for another hour going through that stuff. We know that
I've done shows with you over it.
Well, yeah, because we both know it really well. There are certain, and we can't prove that everything they've shown us is fakery, but we've seen enough stuff where it's clear fakery that we know, okay, for some reason, whatever the reason is, they are at least somewhat showing poppycock to the public.
Right.
The thing to find out then is, why are they doing that?
Right. And you could still fake moon landings and you could still fake space travel, even if the Earth's a sphere. Doesn't mean you couldn't do that. Now, I don't think the Earth's a sphere. I can't even really, I used to say, like, I don't even know how people, it seems very metaphysical to me. The idea of, like, I've never seen anything pull to the center. So when they tell me that the Earth works because everything pulls to the center, and that's why we all feel down relative to our own position. But it's like, okay, still, where's the evidence of things pulling to the center of something? There really isn't that evidence. So there's enough wrong with it that I am still confident that the Earth is not a sphere. But I'm also confident in the fact that if the sun does it'd be really tough to explain any other way, unless you use multiple suns, in which case we would see them. So that's why I say on the 19th, as of the 19th, when I get back, I'll know for myself one way or the other. And then I can I'll feel so much better one way or the other, because at least I'll know that much. And I can then you start to build your belief system off of some foundation which is very difficult when you think everybody's lying to you about everything. It's hard to build a foundation in anything because you doubt everything. And what can you really go out and prove for yourself? But this is something that if it can't be faked, then it is of prime importance. It's like what do they call it? Prima facie evidence, right? It's very strong and from the start and from the beginning. And it's what the Globe isn't backtracking or anything. The Globe never said, oh, we don't think it. We're not sure. The Globe has been very adamant about that fact from day one, right? So saying, no, there is a 24-hour sun. We said, no, there's not. They couldn't show that there was, and we couldn't necessarily show that there wasn't. So it's just been kind of a stalemate. And then all these flat earthers now are like fair weather flat earthers where they're like, I didn't even care about the sun when I became a flat earther. It's like, okay, go around saying that. But many people did because it makes a big difference. And I'll be the first one to admit, if I found all this evidence of a 24-hour sun in 2014, there's a high chance I didn't become a flat earther. It's just the way it goes. Because that one, the no circumnavigation, that's probably the biggest one. That guy, he's called ZQ Pilot. He got the record for north-south circumnavigation, but I watched him fly from Brazil to the 90-degree marker and turn around and fly back to Brazil. And then he went over to New Zealand, and then he did the north part, and they gave him the record. And I said, okay, you don't give records of circumnavigation to people who don't circumnavigate. He went to the 90-degree marker and turned around because he said it got too cold. He didn't go across that's not circumnavigation. So when I saw that, I think that was a big one for me. And then throughout, look at what they did to Behind the Curve is very good evidence to me that the earth is flat. Because I look at it and I say, okay, here's these guys are making a movie about flat earth. But they want to show it's a globe. Why not just go and show it's a globe? Why would you take my experiment, misrepresent it? That seems like what you would do if you can't prove it's a globe. So, I mean, there's just
they were coming at it from a false premise from like the get-go. When I saw that, I was like, who the hell would make this? I mean, it wasn't a very well done film, and I can say that because I've made a film and won 10 awards for it.
Right.
And
no, it wasn't.
I can actually brag a little bit there.
I would say the film was pretty. That was it. I think that they did.
Yeah, but I mean, I just felt like it wasn't very well done. Like the fact that they had to hyper edit everything to try and make things. Yeah. It's kind of like all the ridiculous interviews with Kamala Harris where they had to hyper edit them to make her look less stupid. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It's what it reminds me of. Is this kind of stuff.
Every answer was, well, I grew up in a middle class family.
It's just so laughable, and it's like that's what these people did. But because I know you, and I knew how many people in that film that I've broken bread with. How many of these folks that are all really cool, and then they're trying to paint this weird picture. I was like, okay, so these guys tried to make a hit piece, but they didn't do a very good job of it. And then they had like literally like a really anticlimactic ending by trying to make you look dumb, and really it just ended. I was like, yeah, you guys aren't very good filmmakers.
When they did that, because when I talked to a lawyer finally, he was saying, do you have any evidence of them saying that you proved the globe? Because then he said, we have a case, but I don't. So what they did is they did the end of the movie. They didn't say anything about it, and they let people come to their own conclusions, right? They never said, oh, Jeran proved the globe here. They just made the end of me saying interesting so that they could make it like that was their little way out, their little weasel move. But they were weasels from the start. I mean, I'll never trust people like that again. Like when I asked the producer of the movie, the girl, when we were in North Carolina, I said, hey, can I get a look at some of the work you've done? And she's like, yeah, I'll send you some videos. So she sent me like 5 links, and they were to these 5 different documentaries. She didn't include the one that was the Sandy Hook documentary where she goes after Wolfgang Halbig and basically misrepresented him. She didn't even show me that one, of course. But I was trying to tell people like that. Like if I'm
dishonesty from the get-go.
Yeah, if I'm asking Neil deGrasse Tyson to come on my show, and he's like, can I get some copies of your, and I go send him my, how do you do your garage shelving? And how do you,
here's a rap song.
Right. And then he comes on my show and I'm like, haha, I'm a flat earther who hates the globe. Like that's deceptive. That is exactly what that is. But when they do it to me, the people are like, that's not deceptive. She just didn't send you that one. No, she knows I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm worried about working with her. I asked for her work and she sends me 5 things that aren't conspiracy related.
Yeah, they're just disingenuous. And you know what? The documentary went nowhere and did nothing. Like they got exactly what they deserved. They didn't get what they wanted out of it for whatever their motives were.
Like Alex Stein and others say that that's what brought them to flat earth. So I've heard it from numerous people who say that they watched the documentary, then they were just interested in the subject, started looking into it, and became flat earthers. But I mean, even if, like I don't know how to explain it. Like even if I said that the globe has better evidence, it's like I still wouldn't even have a problem saying like, but I am in the flat earth camp as far as when it comes to anti-establishment. I'm just the way that they've taught it, we've got Stephen Hawking faking. Like, how can science ever think it's okay to fake anything? Like that's
It
just
shouldn't, and we saw that again with the thing I'm not going to talk about from just a short few years ago. How much stuff did they blatantly lie about? Not just fudged a
right.
little bit,
And then
blatant lies.
hurt him now because now, I mean, you like, geez, 50% more people don't trust them at all.
No, and I was wondering if that was going to happen because as long as they didn't really manage to knock off enough people in huge quantities, that it was
that's
just
a trouble for them, right? Like, and then having everybody stay home, it just gives people the exact thing that we've always said, that when you're home and you have time in front of the computer, that's when you research. When you have work all day, you don't have time for that shit. When I was a store manager of a drugstore, my entire knowledge came from the 30 minutes I drove to work and listened to the radio. That was it. That was my entire
that exact thing, Jeran, is one of the things that the controllers had to have had in mind by squeezing us in the economy. Like, it's not like things were 50, 60 years ago where you could have a single person with a decent income run the household and everybody can live comfortably. No, we don't have, unless you have a damned good job. It's not like that anymore.
When you grew up, did you guys eat dinner like at the table?
Not every night, but a little bit. I come from a divorced family, so it was kind of like yes and no.
Divorced until I was 16, so it just seemed like, and I remember sitting at our table eating dinner, like you look across the street and the neighbors were sitting at their table having dinner. And then,
yeah,
you know, it's just what everybody did, and it was just such a different world.
It was a lot more respectful of the family. Like there's things about that the older way of doing things is respectful.
I remember asking my dad one time who he voted for, and he was like, "You don't ask people that."
Yeah.
Like it's very private.
Big deal.
Right. And you understand why now. It's because if people start arguing over beliefs in politicians, that it becomes irreconcilable.
Like 3 years ago.
Right. It becomes very weird. And so you have that problem. And then you've got people who basically they internalize the candidate. They become Trump or they become Kamala, right? They like all of a sudden it's like their entire identity is these people. That was never the case back then. And you wouldn't talk about that or politics, or religion or politics. And now that's all everybody talks about. So you can see what happened. And the internet didn't help anybody because the internet allows people to say things they would never say in person, to hold positions they would never say in person. Like, for instance, these guys who are calling me all these names on these other channels, in a real life that didn't have an internet, that would never happen.
Because Jeran, let's address that. Yeah. Well, how are you compromised? Because I know you pretty well. I mean, you could be. I mean, there's no way I could prove it or not. You live a couple thousand miles away from me, but I don't see anything about you that's compromised. You're just taking a different position, and some people are crapping their diapers over it, to be blunt.
I don't get it. Again, I allow people to have other beliefs. So I don't know why it wouldn't be just reciprocated. And that's not, how could that be in the nature of being a flat earther? You should never be like, oh, we're a flat earther now we're a cult. And everybody has to believe the exact same thing. I always say this, if two people believe the same thing, one of you is useless. One of you should go away. The kind of one of the cool things about being a human is that we all have different opinions. We all have different beliefs. We all have different ideas. That's what makes it very, very diverse. If we all believe the same thing, there would be one item on a menu when we went to a restaurant.
Chicken fingers.
Yes, chicken finger for everybody. So, or there'd be one channel on TV. Life would be miserable. But that's what truthers believe that they are gearing for, is they want everybody to believe. And if they ask you, you could believe everything the same, right? You believe 9/11, you believe this, but then they're like, January 6th, that girl Ashley Babbitt didn't die. I'm like, actually, I think she did. You're a shill. It's like, no, we believe everything the same.
Shill callers. I'm so over the shill callers, but I've been saying this for years now. Wayne and I talk about this all the time. It's like, nobody's a shill. There's a few people, to be perfectly blunt and honest, there are like one or two people where I really do have some questions about. You're not one of them. I think you'd have to be doing a lot more for me to have super red flags about you. There are a few people that I'm like, you got to wonder sometimes. But for the most part, I don't think there are shills. I don't think the government or what's above the government, is more to the point, gives a shit. It doesn't matter.
I think that if anything, it's much better to have people that truly believe in things promoting them than to ever have people lying, because liars is a liability. If you have to pay Neil deGrasse to pretend that the earth is a ball, it's a liability, because he could at any time be like, shit, what I'm doing is wrong. And I need to admit, I need to come out and be, that's the scary thing. To where if Neil deGrasse Tyson really believes it and he really went to school and he really got his degree, then he just thinks he's smart. He thinks he's the cat's ass. He thinks he promotes this to children. So his brain won't even allow him to conceive that he's wrong, because with that comes a lot of shit that he's going to have to deal with internally, like lying to children, like, thinking you're smart when you've been fooled. So to me, it just seems like they would rather have people that really believe things than to pay people to lie about things. And that's what a shill, that basically when you call it a shill, you're basically saying somebody's been approached and told the earth is flat, but you're going to do this direction. You're going to take people down this road, which is ridiculous. It's just, I haven't seen any evidence of that. The only person, like I said, that, you know, a shill is who gets there early and then sets up in a way that makes the mark happen. And Eric Dubay was here first, and Eric Dubay has demonized every single person that's ever come and made a video.
Was he before everybody else? I thought Matt Powerland was slightly before him.
Might be around the same time.
I could be wrong though.
But he was the first one that came with like a full written book, 200 proofs, and it was like, here's the map. He had the map all done. We knew the A map. So again, could it just be a coincidence? It could be, but also a shill is the person who gets there early, sets it up so that the mark can happen. And if he kind of introduced it and then just demonized every flat earther that came along, that's why we're so segmented. As I've said, if Eric would have at any point stood up and said, "I'll be Flat Earth president," we would have all said, "Amen." We would have rallied.
I think he's just a bit of a douchey human being. I mean, let's just be blunt here.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I think you're right.
I mean, it is what it is, and I'm always open to be wrong about anybody. But all this crap of shill calling and all that, well, to me, if you're going to do something like this, there better be some evidence of large amounts of money being exchanged, because that's the only reason anybody would do any of it. And guess what? I have uncovered some stuff of certain conspiracy topics that there's some dirty pool going on here. And I've had some stuff said to me in confidence, but it certainly made me look at things in certain ways that, hey, that there are people who get paid off to do things. And I'm not talking about flat earth. I'm talking about other things, but yeah, there's some things where that does go on and you got to wonder why.
Yeah. Sorry. She was talking to me. What? Yeah. Put the Tesla in the garage. Thank you. All right. Sorry. I was going to say, I'm just kidding. I'm not a Tesla. It's a joke. People who run with that, they'll think I'm being serious. It's a joke. Come on. I have a 2017 Jeep. What's it called? Compass. No. Patriot. There you go. I was going to get you this contract, but I can't find it. Where is it?
Well, I think we've gone through it all. So if you want to discuss the contract, and then I think
questions.
I think we beat the subject.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tired.
The people who think you're a great big doo-doo head are always going to think you're a great big doo-doo head, no matter what we say or do. And I don't care what anybody else thinks. I have my own opinions. That's why Crow 777 Radio is so successful, and why we keep to ourselves and we don't join groups and we don't come out swinging about different opinions and all this crap, because this isn't.
That's what Crow told me the very first time I ever talked to him was. Yep. Tried to get him to come on a show with me or something. And he's like, no, let me just warn you that I like the work you're doing, but don't join any groups.
Don't join groups. And we've always stuck to that. Yep.
And he was right, because every time I did, something happened to where, I mean, I was with
Well, the way he said it to me when we first got to be friends, he goes, look, if you join a group and then one person out of all those people in that group starts humping chickens in their front yard, then guess what? You're all humping chickens in your front yard. And it's a very funny way to say it, but basically you're going to get painted with the same brush. And he's totally spot on. And I've stuck to that. And now we're like 7+ years that Crow and I have been doing this, and we're extremely successful. And I'm extremely grateful for that. And we're going to just stick to what works.
Yeah, it makes so much more sense. I mean, he was dead right, because I've seen it. I've seen people who have gone down that road, or who have to protect their group, or it's the Nathan Oakley group. Like they become their own faction. And part of the faction, there's like rules. The rules are Austin Whitsitt's an idiot. The rules are, it's like, and they have to all toe that company line. I mean, come on. If somebody's telling you that Austin Whitsitt's an idiot, that's pretty much all the information you need from them. Oh yeah, he's a real dumb guy. Yeah, all right. Sure.
Well, this is all cult of personality with egos clashing too. Let's be freaking real about that.
Of course, yeah. Trying to find this for you. What was the date of the
Well, if you don't have it, that's cool. I really think we went through what I wanted to go through just to give you a place where, like, I have no dog in this fight. I don't care. Like, whatever comes out, it comes out. And I just didn't like the fact that people are just shitting all over you.
I don't mind it. I mean, what are you going to do?
It bugs me. It's like, come on. What are you doing to change things, to add to the sum total of knowledge?
What's happened, though, is that, and I know this is part of being a truther, is that you have to have this opinion that anybody on that other side, or anybody saying something against your position, is part of the conspiracy, right? Which is a problem with conspiracies, because basically the lack of evidence becomes evidence of the conspiracy, right? Like you can always, it creates a situation where you can say, oh, if that guy's saying this, he's lying. But if he's saying that, he's not. It's like when we use NASA sometimes as evidence against NASA. Have you seen that? Where people say, oh, the Van Allen belts keep, well, yeah, but NASA came up with that. NASA's the one who has Van Allen belts. So you're using the Van Allen belts that NASA reports to say that they're not doing what NASA reports are doing. That's just a little bit funky. Now, again, I get why we do that, but it does create a world where you always have to do that. Right. So if Jeran and Austin are going on this trip, and this trip might potentially do something bad to flat Earth, then Jeran and Austin must be part of the conspiracy, because people just can't rationalize the opposite of that, which is just, we're just guys going down there. I've heard people saying, well, why did Jeran and Witsit get selected? We didn't get selected. It was picked by a poll. It's not selected. Like, nobody picked us. In fact, Dave Weiss won. So he was asked first, and then I was asked second, and then Austin was third. So it just so happens Austin and I. So it's just when you hear these things from other people where they're always saying things that are like, no, that's not true. That's not true. Nope. No, we don't have to say it's a globe just because we see the sun go around. But again, people want their own narratives and they run with them.
Well, Jeran, you must be a shill and you must be compromised because you don't believe the same thing that so-and-so believes. So
yes, exactly.
Proof. Illuminati confirmed.
There it is. See, it's so easy.
So stupid.
Okay, so I have this now. I'm going to send it to you on, where do you want it? Just so you have it if you want to read it. Because I'd be interested to know if you think it's a good.
Oh, definitely take a look over it. Yeah, I'm curious.
On, text then. Sound good? Beautiful. So what else? Did anybody in the audience have any questions or anything that?
Well, I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. I tried to pick them out, but I'm not really watching the chat that much either. Rose can chime in if she likes, if there's anything specific that we should address that we didn't before we sign off.
Rose, did you see anything in the chat that needs to be answered?
I didn't see anything specific that I remember, but if anybody wants to try and type something in real quick, we could try, see if there's something.
Okay. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, but the trip will suck. I'll tell you that much. It's not going to be fun.
I don't think there's any questions from the audience at this time. Unless you want me to look at the Sean's reacting to this on his channel. I can look at the chat on his channel and read anything interesting. Hold on.
Sean.
Kingdom in Context.
Oh, Sean. Gotcha.
Anybody anybody knows about Sean, he's awesome. And I remember when he interviewed me, it was like episode 8 years ago, and he's very knowledgeable. Let me go here and just make sure.
Oh, he's great.
Okay, so going over to Sean's channel.
And the thing is, I mean, I can understand more too from people that don't like Duffy who are Christian, because I do think he had to like make up a new belief around the firmament because it doesn't fit at all with what his model of the earth is. So he had to say that the firmament is actually the crust of the earth. He's like the only person in the history of the world to ever say that.
Okay, I found a comment that I want to read. Sadly, the evidence seems strong that demons have taken a strong hold over Jeran. He goes out of his way to attack God and the Bible and has said the most blasphemous statement about Jesus. 100% shill. And I do agree that you do say not nice things about the Bible, which is poor form.
Well, one thing that people need to realize about that statement that somebody recorded is that was in a discussion with Red's Rhetoric. And what, again, people never look at the context, is they kept going after me about the religious end of it. So I was trying to talk to them about the flat earth, and they were just like, oh, it's just because God says so. It's just because Jesus said so. And I'm like, shut up. No, it's because this is, they're like, yeah, just because Jesus died for your sins. And then I said, because I was pissed off that they kept bringing it up. So I said, Jesus Christ can do something that he probably doesn't want to do. But they, of course, recorded that. They clip it so that it's not, you don't get any of the context. Not that the context made it much better, but at least you'd understand that I didn't just say that like it was for some weird reason. It was because they were constantly throwing it. And I was trying to say, it doesn't matter about Jesus right now. This matters. And what was said is probably something I regret. But as far as bad form about going after the Bible, which I haven't done recently, if you've noticed, paid any attention, because I do understand that, like, if it wasn't for Christians, this world would be in a lot worse shape, because there's nobody really stopping this trans agenda, stuff like that, than Christians. So I see that. I see that they've done a lot of good work, and my mom's a good person because of Christianity.
A lot of people are. Just
Yeah.
some people twist the religion for their own purposes as well. I mean, come on, it's just like everything else. There's good people and there's bad people.
Right. And there's just yeah, but like one thing my mom said when she retired, I was like, what are you going to do now? She's like, well, I still got to visit people in prison. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, Jesus said we got to visit people in prison. So how could you ever knock that religion when, like,
It's a very considerate thing to do, and
Yeah.
a very, very wonderful use of time.
Now, me, it's just my problem is I look at the Bible and I say, well, that the world is the way it is because the Bible is the way it is. Meaning the Bible says, let the meek inherit the earth, and all these things that, you know, don't save money. Well, guess what? All the Christians, they didn't save any money for their kids, and that's why everybody grows up and they don't have money. Whereas the elites, what do? They have generational money where they keep handing money on to their kids, and so they rule the world now because of that. So as long as you're okay with the Bible being responsible for the way the world is, the Bible says, let the wicked be wicked, let the evil be evil. So when we want to think about going and stopping these people, most people are like, no, the Bible says let them be. So isn't that exactly what would be said in the Bible if you were wicked and you were the ones who wrote it? You would write in the Bible, their punishment will be after their death. Let the wicked be wicked, let the evil be evil, and you will get your riches in heaven when you're dead. That's okay, I guess, as long as it's true. If it's not, then you just completely destroyed the world and completely took it over by means of lying and control. I mean, the Bible says that all governments are placed there by God, and to go against the government is to go against God. So again, if you want to believe that that's written by God, go ahead. God would never write that, because God would be smart enough to recognize that some governments are not put there by God, and that some governments need to be battled against and transgressed and not just blindly followed. But the Bible says to go against the government is to go against God. So when you went against the vax, when you went against getting vaccinated when you were supposed to, and wearing a mask when you were supposed to, government is the one who implemented that, and you went against that. And the Bible says if you go against that, you go against God. Now, you don't believe that, but you are going to yell at me about the Bible. That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense.
Well, as soon as you start doing religion, Jeran, you know that somebody's going to get their panties in a bunch somewhere. It just is what it is. That's why I don't go there. I just leave it alone.
I found another comment, and it's not about the Bible. So, but I don't know how many questions you want me to pick if your answer is gonna be so long for every single one.
Rose, you can cover for a minute. I'm gonna be right back. I'm getting way too hot. I got to get my air conditioning on.
Okay, great. All right, no problem.
Rose, I will have my answers be much quicker. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So I like this comment. What would be funny? This is from GR Cleve on Sean's channel. What would be funny and classic if they try to employ a fake sun and it fails and crashes like some of the Satelloons?
That'd be hilarious. But the sad thing about that is then I'll die. They'll kill us. If that happens, they're not going to let us come back with footage of the sun falling out of the sky. So if that happens, then just know that we'll be dead, and you better go and be there the next year.
Let's see here. Is there anything from Jason's channel here? A lot of Eric Dulayan says a lot of organized Christianity is definitely a cult and perverted from what it should be. And it's totally true that there are people that call themselves one things, and then the way that they live their lives is completely the opposite. And what I've always thought was so stressful about the Bible is that there's so many different interpretations. And if it's supposed to be instructions for life, you better make sure that you're interpreting it properly. But anyway, let's go back over here. What other comments do we have?
There's a channel right now that says live Earth view from space, and it's just a cartoon. And they have.
Do you want to share it?
41 people watch. It's just crazy that that's allowed on YouTube. Why wouldn't you? It's a complete lie. Live Earth view from space. I'll show it to you just because it's hilarious. Can I share here? I don't know, share on there. What's going on?
Try to share a streak. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of questions coming in about it anymore. So when Jason comes back, we should probably wrap it up. But if you have something interesting to share, let's share something on the screen that's interesting for when Jason comes back.
You see that?
Yeah, here we go.
Says the name of the video is Live Earth View from Space. Like nobody believes this, right? I gotta look at the chat over here. Nobody believes it, please. A bunch of different Arabics or something. That's hilarious. It's such shit. I mean, people have realized this. This is why I wish I was an immoral person, because there's so many ways to make money in this world by being a lying scumbag. And this would be one of them. Just make fake channels that say live view from space and show a cartoon ball, live view of NASA landing on Mars, and just replay the NASA Mars footage over and over again. That's because it's not copyrightable, because it's a government thing. People do that to make money. And again, if I could be a scumbag, then I would do that. It pisses me off that people take advantage of that. That's just the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Ugliest thing I've ever seen.
It's very fake. Very fake.
Rig
5 is saying, so if the evidence of them faking the sun happens, you will die. So what's the point of the trip? I don't really understand your comment that much, Rig 5. Maybe you could reword that.
I guess so like Austin Whitsitt has told me before in the past that he said he thinks eventually they're going to have to adopt the flat earth, that they can't keep the lie going forever. So he's always said, what would happen to catalyze? What would be the catalyst for that? We don't know. But when we heard about this trip, we're like, okay, is there a chance that they are ready to come out with something and that they need somebody to go show it? Because, for instance, let's say it would not be good for the government just to come out and say, hey, we've been lying to you about flat earth. That wouldn't be good, right? But it would be better if we show it and then there's really nobody to blame. It's like 9/11. Who do you blame for 9/11? Nobody's ever been, that's why people have thought maybe the moon landings would come out when all the astronauts are dead, because the astronauts will be dead and everybody who was in the control room is dead. There's really nobody to get mad at. Just you're like, oh, I guess they faked that. So it's a thought that it could be possible that they're ready for some sort of disclosure. They're going to include this with some sort of alien. The aliens implanted us here in this flat earth petri dish. We don't know, but it's certainly not out of the question. But for the most part, I understand his question. His question is, if there's no positive side to this, why would you go on the trip?
Okay,
Well,
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But the
I found
difference is there
another
is a
one.
lot of positive side. For instance, if they cancel this trip, that's huge, right? That's what we thought. If it's cloudy the whole time, if something happens that doesn't, those are all huge. And if it does circle, then you need to realize that that is a win because it's the truth. So you're making it sound like if only we should only go and do things if good things are the outcome. Well, the observation itself is a benefit to everybody. So you're missing that point. You're thinking if you see a circling sun, it'd be better if we didn't see anything at all. You're taking a religious standpoint who don't care about the truth. You'd rather not know the truth than to know it. If it goes against your current beliefs, you're exactly the problem.
We can symbolically observe this fake turning of this fake earth on the screen to help us realize that no matter what, time is going to continue to go by. As the earth spins, time is going to go by, and we're going to get closer and closer to December 14th. And eventually you're going to, if you go, I mean, I honestly feel like it's at the very, very last minute, the whole thing could be canceled. But if you really do go, then we're going to know either way something, and it's going to be more things for everyone to talk about. But there's someone here on Sean's channel that said, could a similar experiment be done at the southernmost part of South America? If there are more hours of sunlight down there than at the equator, wouldn't that give you a similar conclusion?
Give you a similar one, but it wouldn't be definitive, because again, is the sun setting that way just in optics and not actually going that direction and going around the Earth as the sphere calls for. So yes, you could go to South America at the very tip, but you would never see the sun circle you. It would just appear to go set south of west and rise the next day south of east. Now, it should give you a kind of a good indication, I guess. But, and I've showed it before. If you look at the ray tracing diagrams, you can actually make it so that when you bring the sun across the north of that person at the edge, that the sun actually rises, the sun that we see rises south of east and sets south of west. So ray tracing diagrams or ray tracing programs show that. But they'll never show you a sun that circles you because there's no mechanism for that.
All right. Well, since Jason's back, don't know whether we are ending the stream or if I should remove myself or if you want to try to get more questions. What do you want to do, Jason?
Oh, I think 2.5 hours is enough for me.
I agree.
The whole point behind this was to stand up for my friend, let him speak his mind, ask what questions I had because I really didn't know that many details, and try and give anybody who might have had questions the chance to hear it from an objective platform because like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight. So,
and again, you shouldn't care about my beliefs unless you just like to hear, I like to hear other people's beliefs and then why they believe them. But I just leave it there. It's not going to be a determining factor to me unless what they're saying matches my worldview or matches something else I've seen or is an explanation for something I couldn't answer before. And that's pretty much it. But the people are acting like what we come back and say, like it's going to be, Jeran is a flatter sphere. And then whatever I say, the whole world has to believe I'm like, sphere. And then the whole world, oh no, like that's not, it shouldn't be that way. We're just the person going down to film it. And to make sure that you don't have any claims like they're faking it or they showed old footage, I'm going to have a GoPro strapped to me the entire time. So you'll be able to tell, you'll be like you went on the trip. And will I get any apologies from people who all demonized us and called us? Never. That's the thing that sucks. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, regardless of what you end up seeing down there, and regardless of all of the crazy drama that happens on YouTube, my main priority is that I want to be a good person, do the right thing, live in accordance with truth and however this reality is meant to be for humans, and that I am so not like perfect and messed up, and I just want to continue my path for personal improvement, and that I'm not going to be able to change all the crazy people around me. So I'm just going to continue to try and work on myself and discover what's really going on and why we're here. So thanks, Jeran.
And that's all I'm doing. It's just I'm going to be honest with my observations. I'm going to be honest with my opinions. That's what you'll get. I like what what's his name says. Oh God, Nathan Stoltman. Sorry, Nathan Stoltman says in his little motto there. He says, "Always honest, sometimes right." And I could give you that's all I can promise you is that I'm going to be honest with you what I see and what I believe. And could I be right? Could I be wrong? I'll be either. I don't know, but I can't promise those things. But I'll at least give you the evidence and the reasons why I believe it. So hopefully that's good enough. And if not,
well, we can reconvene in a month or so and we can go over whatever it is you want to go over that happened. I think that would actually be fun. We'll do a part 2 if you want.
Sounds good. That'd be great. Yeah, month should be, what do we leave a month from? We leave in a month.
It's really soon. Yeah.
I think I fly out the 10th. So less than a month to go. And I've had to go outside the last couple nights just to get freezing cold and make sure I don't, my teeth don't chitter. But it's only like 40 out there and it's supposed to be 0. So a little bit colder.
I grew up in the Northeast, so I know what that cold is, and it's going to be even colder than that. So may God have mercy on your soul, my friend.
How cold does it get like in New York? Does it get below 0?
Oh yeah. I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, and we can get very harsh winters. I've been through many blizzards. Yeah, it's not what I like. That's why I live in the South now.
I know. Somebody told me they bought who was telling me? Oh, one of my friends told me they bought a jacket that warms you, like has little. They're like, are you gonna get one of these? I'm like, I didn't even know this existed. But now I'm thinking about it. You have to like attach these battery packs to it, and it like heats you from the. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. It's like a battery operated vest, I guess.
When I first moved to South Louisiana, somebody saw the ice scraper / snow brush in my car, and they asked me what it was.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known.
Maybe you don't know what it is. When you live in some place that snows and has lots of ice, there's a thing usually about yay long, if you can tell by the camera, and there's a brush to brush the snow off, and then the other side is an ice pick, so that you can clean off your window. Because in the wintertime, you're not seeing anything after a good icy rain or snowstorm or anything.
Water on it? Do you pour water on it or not in the snow?
No.
Okay, see, that's what you do here. That's what you do in California. You just pour water on it.
Well, you probably have similar snow to what we get here in Louisiana, which is like a little bit of slush that everybody freaks out over and can't drive in because they just like, what is this? Oh my God!
Well, I don't like driving in the snow. I've never been a fan of that. But it's because I don't do it very often.
Man, you can't. It's just a different thing when you have to be used to it.
But
and
when I lived in Colorado, we had our apartment was the second floor, and we looked across at I forgot the name of the mall, Citadel Mall or something, but that you could see the top floor of the parking garage, and we would sit out on our balcony and just watch cars because they would go up there and they would just slide until they got back down to the other side. They would go to the top and then they'd have to bounce off the walls till they got to the exit and then go down.
Oh my God.
Oh, I got to tell you what happened to me yesterday. Has this ever happened to you? So it's my wife and I's anniversary on 11/11. So we
happy anniversary, guys.
We went to a hotel to stay, and we go to the front desk, we get our key, everything. We're going up there. So we go to our room. We're on on floor 4, and we go to our room. And I got Mavi in a pull cart, and I've got my backpack and the duffel bag, and I'm kind of opening the door with the key card. I open the door. I'm backing in, and as I'm backing in, I hear like some noise. And it sounds loud, and I'm like, oh, the walls are like thin here or something, I guess. And then I hear somebody say hello, and I'm looking at my wife. I'm facing the room's to my back, and I looked at her. I said, "Who said that?" She said, "What?" I said, "I thought I heard somebody say hello." She goes, "No." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I keep backing in. Now, as I get back into the room and I turn around and look, I'm right past the wall where I can see the bed. Here's some big old fat guy in his underwear getting out of the bed, ready to fight me, because he's like, "What the fuck? You're in the room." I'm like, "Oh, hold on. This is the room we were given." And he's like, "What the hell's going on?" I'm like, "Look we got in with the key. They gave us the same room you have." And his wife was in bed. They were like making love. And so then we had a couple good laughs. And he's like, "Well, do you want to call him from here?" I'm like, "No, we'll go down there. You can call him." I said, "You get this room comped easy." He's like, "Yeah, you're damn right." And then I said, "I'm going to go down and tell him I didn't ask for the swingers room. Sorry about that." So we had a good couple laughs.
Good zinger.
But I've never had that happen in my entire life. But it tells me I'm like, I never put the latch on when I'm in a hotel room. I don't know why, but I always will now. Because
No, I always do, because I just never trust that the maid service isn't just going to walk in.
Yeah, it's just, or I don't know how they did. Well, come to find out, I guess their system was down, so they were doing everything by hand. Not that it gives them an excuse.
Oh, and somebody just made a clerical error.
But like, what if we went up there and let's say they were gone? They were down at the somewhere. They went out to eat, and then there's just like their bags on the table. I mean, anybody could steal their stuff. I mean, there's just so many problems.
Yeah.
So we also got a room comp, so that was nice.
Oh, good. A little discomfort, and didn't cost you anything, right?
I just see a rather poorly gentleman, but that's it. But his boxers were cool, I guess. So.
Well, now you've got a story to tell about this.
For our 13th anniversary, we Unlucky 13 had to see.
You can say to Mavi in like 20 years, you'll be like, you probably don't remember this, but
yeah, you won't remember that. But yeah, it was pretty fun. But like, what if the guy had a gun? Like, if he would have shot us, would that be? I don't even know how the law would work on that one.
I think with something with a hotel room, it's kind of like your car. It's considered an extension of your home, I think. But
I think it is too.
It might be different by states.
Yeah, and it might be that, like, if I didn't make any kind of move that was imposing, I don't think you can shoot somebody. You're not supposed to.
It would have been messy legally, no matter what.
Yes.
And if you died, it would have been bad in general. I mean, the guy could still have gotten manslaughter.
And then right when I got to our room, I looked up on my phone. I was like, "Does this happen to people?" And I looked up, walked in on somebody, and it happens all the time. There's just story after story on Reddit. It's just people, this happened. This person walked in on me. This person walked in when I was in the shower. So I guess it happens. So now, latch the door.
Latch the door, man.
Moral of the story.
Reminder to everybody.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, my friend. Glad we got a chance to chat and go over this. And
I'm going to send that contract to Rose, and she'll give it to you.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. And some people got to bitch, moan, whine, and complain. Hope you enjoyed that as well. Anyway, take care. Okay. We'll see you next time. Later.
Peace.
We'll see.